Kara
I'm
Matthews was
staying right
11,
here.
alone in
You have my
Ouachita
word.
National Forest for her Gold Award challenge, when she heard heavy breathing cutting through the October darkness. Then she saw it. A man stumbling through dense pine, carrying a limp child in yellow pajamas with daisies. One pink sock. One barefoot. For 48 hours, Kara tracked a county commissioner turned kidnapper, stayed hidden 40 yards from a murder cabin, kept a 5-year-old alive with smuggled granola bars and creek water, and left trail markers that finally guided 117 Hell's Angels and FBI agents to GPS coordinates. No map showed. What drove her wasn't just wilderness training. It was remembering what it felt like when nobody helped her family. And Kara doesn't walk past people who need help. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. And let's get into this story. I'm staying with her. Whatever happens, she won't be alone. That's what Kara whispered to herself. Friday night, October 25th, 2024, at 8:17 p.m., watching through binoculars as a man in business casual carried an unconscious child deeper into Ouachita National Forest. But she didn't know the child's name yet, didn't know the man was a county commissioner, didn't know he'd killed before, and planned to kill again. She only knew what she saw. And what she saw was wrong. Kara had killed her campfire the moment she heard movement. Her father taught her that. When you don't know what's coming through the woods after dark, you make yourself invisible first, and assess second. She grabbed her red filter headlamp from her survival pack, the kind that doesn't destroy night vision, and moved to the tree line at the edge of her clearing. 15 seconds of silence. Just wind through pine trees and her own pulse hammering in her ears. Then the sound came again. Boots on pine needles. Irregular rhythm. Someone moving fast but clumsy. Maybe 150 yards northwest. Kara raised her binoculars. The man came into view exactly 90 seconds later. He was tall, close to 6 feet, wearing khaki pants and a dark polo shirt like he'd just left an office meeting. Wire-rimmed glasses catching moonlight. He had a small duffel bag slung across his chest. And cradled in both arms, head lolling against his shoulder, was a little girl. She looked tiny, maybe 4 or 5 years old, blonde hair tangled and hanging past her shoulders, yellow fleece pajama top with daisies across the chest. The left sleeve was torn at the shoulder seam. Pink fuzzy socks on her feet, except one sock had fallen off somewhere between wherever he'd taken her and here. Her right foot was bare. Dirty. The man's grip kept shifting, like he wasn't used to carrying weight. Like this was the first time he'd ever hauled a child through wilderness. She wasn't moving. Kara lowered the binoculars. Her hands were shaking. She whispered to herself, testing the words. That's not a father carrying a sleeping kid to his car. That's wrong. She's unconscious. He's scared. He keeps looking back like someone's chasing him. She watched the man glance over his shoulder again, scanning the forest behind him. Nobody's chasing him, except his own guilt. The man stopped once, maybe 60 yards from where Kara crouched behind a granite outcrop. He adjusted the girl in his arms, shifted the duffel bag, looked behind him one more time, like he expected flashlights, voices, pursuit. Then he muttered something Kara barely caught, something about almost there and just another mile. And he kept moving northwest, uphill, into darkness. Kara stayed frozen for 10 seconds after he disappeared from view. Her mind raced through the calculation. The options. She could hike out. 3 miles back to her campsite. Another 5 miles to the nearest ranger station. Call her dad, Call police. Get help. 8 hours round trip. Minimum. By then, the child could be moved, hidden somewhere else. Or worse. Her father's voice echoed in her head, words he'd told her 100 times during wilderness training. When you see someone in danger, you don't wait for permission to help. You help. Kara looked at her campsite, at the tent she'd pitched, at the Gold Award project she was supposed to be completing, at the safe, easy choice. Then she looked at the forest where the man had disappeared. She touched the Girl Scout pin on her jacket, the 3-finger salute pin her mother had given her 2 years ago, 2 months before cancer took her. Whispered the beginning of the Girl Scout promise. On my honor, I will try. She didn't finish it. Didn't need to. She knew what honor required. Kara grabbed her pack and made her decision. I'm staying with her. Whatever happens, she won't be alone. She extinguished her campfire completely, dumped water on the coals, scattered the ashes, buried her dinner supplies, and marked the spot with her GPS watch for later retrieval. Then she reorganized her pack. Kept first aid kit, water purifier, 4 granola bars, compass, emergency whistle, emergency blanket, paracord, knife, flashlight with red filter. Removed. Sleeping bag, tent, cooking gear. She needed to travel light. Kara checked her compass. Northwest. She moved into the forest, following the path the man had taken. Her tracking training took over. The skills her father had drilled into her since she was 6. The lessons that were supposed to be for finding deer trails and identifying animal prints, not for trailing a man who might be dangerous. She moved from tree to tree, staying 50 yards back, stepping on soft moss and fallen pine needles, avoiding every dry branch. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her hands shook, but her feet knew exactly what to do. The man headed northwest, uphill, into a section of Ouachita National Forest Kara hadn't explored yet. The terrain roughened, limestone boulders pushing through thin soil, dense thickets of oak scrub forcing them both onto winding paths. By 8:43 p.m., full darkness had settled. The man pulled out his phone, using the flashlight feature to navigate. Weak blue-white light that ruined his night vision and made him stumble every 3rd step. Kara kept her red headlamp on its dimmest setting. Red light doesn't give away position. Her scoutmaster had taught her that. They walked. Kara tracking, the man carrying, for 1 hour and 22 minutes. 2.1 miles. And then the man stopped. Kara dropped behind a fallen oak and watched. There was a cabin. It sat in a small clearing ringed by pine trees, maybe 70 feet ahead. The structure looked ancient, weathered board walls with gaps between planks, tin roof rusted orange and curling at the edges, 2 windows with plywood nailed across them, and 1 window with nothing, just an empty frame. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Nobody had used this place in years, maybe decades. The man approached the cabin, shouldered the door open with his hip, and disappeared inside. Kara counted to 60, then crept closer. She found cover behind a rotting stump 45 feet from the cabin's north wall, with dense rhododendron giving her concealment. From here she had a clear sight line straight through that empty window frame into the cabin's interior. The man was setting up a battery-powered lantern, hanging it from a ceiling hook. The weak LED glow showed everything. The girl lay on the floor where he'd dropped her. She stirred. Her head turned slightly. Her small hand twitched. She was waking up. The man knelt beside her and spoke. Kara was too far away to hear yet. The girl's eyes opened. Confusion first, then immediate terror. She tried to sit up. The man pushed her back down, not violent but firm, and spoke again, louder this time. "Don't move, Birdie. We're not home, and we won't be for a while." Birdie. The girl's name was Birdie. Her voice came next, tiny and breaking. "Uncle Warren? Where am I? I want my daddy. Please, I want my daddy." Uncle. Kara's stomach dropped. This wasn't a stranger abduction. This was family. The girl knew him, trusted him, called him uncle, which meant whatever was happening in that cabin was something far worse than Kara had imagined. The man, Warren, grabbed something from the duffel bag. White nylon rope. He dragged the girl to sitting position, pulled over the cabin's only furniture, a wooden chair with peeling paint and one leg shorter than the others, and forced Birdie into it. She started crying. "You're hurting me. Please stop. I want to go home." Warren wrapped the rope around her wrists, pulled it tight behind the chair's backrest. Wrapped it again around her tiny ankles, binding them to the chair legs with knots that looked practiced. She couldn't move at all now. Then he reached into the duffel again and pulled out a strip of cloth. He gagged her, tied it around her mouth, cutting off her sob mid-breath. She could only make muffled sounds now, desperate and small and terrified. Warren stood. He paced. 3 steps one direction, 3 steps back, hands running through his hair. And then he started talking to her. Not gently. Not like an uncle comforting a scared niece, like someone who'd been holding words inside for months and couldn't contain them anymore. Kara pressed herself against the stump and listened. "You don't understand what your daddy did to me, do you?" Warren's voice was tight, bitter. 10 years ago, I had problems. Everybody has problems. I made mistakes. I needed help, not judgment. But Darnell, my own brother, he told our parents, told them I had a drug problem, told them I stole from Mom. He stopped pacing, turned to face Birdie. And you know what Dad did? Kicked me out, disowned me, cut me completely out of the family. Everything went to Darnell. The house, the respect, the hellsangels brotherhood. Darnell got it all. His voice dropped lower, colder. I got nothing. He knelt in front of her. His face was inches from hers. Your daddy destroyed my life, so I'm taking his. Birdie shook her head frantically behind the gag. Tears streamed down her face. Warren pulled a phone from his pocket. A cheap burner phone, Kara guessed. He held it up so Birdie could see the screen. I sent him a text 40 minutes ago. $327,600. 48 hours. That's what your mama's wrongful death settlement is worth. That's what I told him to bring. Cash. No police, or you die. He stood, turned his back to her. He thinks if he pays, you come home safe. He's wrong. I'm keeping the money. And I'm killing you anyway. Because money won't fix what he did to me. Only him losing you will make him feel what I felt when I lost everything. Kara's hands went numb. Her breath came in short gasps she had to force silent. This wasn't kidnapping for ransom. This was murder with a 48-hour countdown. This was a man who'd already decided a 5-year-old had to die so her father could suffer. Warren checked his watch. 11:43 a.m. Sunday morning. That's when your daddy gets the location. Except there won't be a location because you'll already be gone. Hypothermia, probably. Maybe dehydration, doesn't matter. By the time anyone finds this cabin, if they ever do, you'll just be another tragic runaway who got lost in the woods. He walked to the cabin door, stopped, looked back at Birdie one more time. "I'll be back in the morning to check on you. Try to sleep. It'll be cold tonight." Then he left. The door clicked shut. Kara heard a deadbolt slide into place from the outside. A lock Warren must have installed earlier. Birdie was trapped. Kara waited until she heard Warren's footsteps fade completely. 5 minutes of silence, except for Birdie's muffled crying through the cabin walls, before she moved. She circled the clearing carefully, staying low, staying hidden. She found a gap in the cabin's stone foundation on the east side, partially hidden by overgrown weeds. The gap was maybe 18 inches wide, big enough to crawl under when the time was right. But not tonight. Too dangerous. Warren might return. Kara pulled out her notebook, the one where she was supposed to document her Gold Award project, and started writing, recording everything. Warren's exact words about killing Birdie even if ransom was paid. The timeline. The GPS coordinates from her watch. 34.6218 degrees north, 93.2847 degrees west. The description of the cabin. Every detail that might help later. Then she settled behind the stump to wait and watch. The temperature dropped to 41 degrees that night. Kara wore every layer she'd packed. Fleece jacket, windbreaker, wool hat, and still shivered. She didn't sleep, couldn't risk it. Every 15 minutes, she checked the cabin through her binoculars, making sure the lantern still glowed inside, making sure Birdie was still there. At 3:47 a.m., Kara heard Birdie crying through the cabin walls. Soft, exhausted sobs that tore at her heart. Kara wanted desperately to go to her, to whisper comfort through the floorboards, to let Birdie know she wasn't alone, but she forced herself to wait. Warren could return at any moment. If he found evidence someone had been near the cabin, he might move Birdie. Or worse. So Kara stayed hidden, watched, waited, and whispered a promise to herself that she would keep when the time was right. "I'm staying with her. Whatever happens, she won't be alone." She stayed awake through the entire night, watching, waiting, planning for Saturday morning. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray. Kara was exhausted, hands shaking from cold and adrenaline, 24 hours without sleep, when Warren returned to the cabin at 9:28 a.m. She pressed herself flat behind the stump and watched through her binoculars. Warren entered the cabin, stayed for 7 minutes. She could hear his voice through the walls, talking to himself more than to Birdie. "Darnell's probably panicking right now. Good. Let him panic. Let him feel what helpless feels like." He didn't bring food. Didn't bring water. Didn't remove Birdie's gag. He just checked the ropes, confirmed she was still tied securely, and left. 35 a.m. Warren walked away from the cabin, heading back toward the logging road. Kara waited. Counted to 300. 5 full minutes to make absolutely sure he wasn't coming back. Then she moved. She crawled to the gap in the foundation she'd found the night before, lay flat on her stomach, and pulled herself underneath the cabin on her elbows. The space was tight, maybe 2 feet of clearance, but Kara was small, and she'd practiced low crawls during wilderness survival training. She pulled herself forward until she was directly beneath where she'd seen Birdie tied to the chair. The floorboards above her head had gaps. Old wood, rotting through in places. She could see slivers of lantern light. Could hear Birdie's breathing. Shallow. Exhausted. Kara found a loose board, one she could push up from below without making too much noise. She worked it carefully, testing, until it lifted enough to create a small opening. Then she pushed herself up through the gap and into the cabin. Birdie's eyes went huge. She'd been slumped in the chair, half asleep from exhaustion. Now she was fully awake, staring at Kara like she was seeing a ghost. Kara put one finger to her lips. Shh. Don't make noise. I'm here to help. She crossed to the chair quickly and carefully removed the gag. Birdie gasped for air. Her voice came out raw, barely above a whisper. You're real. Are you real? I'm real. Kara knelt in front of the chair, eye level with Birdie. My name is Kara. I followed your uncle here last night. I've been watching all night. He just left. We have maybe an hour before he comes back. The gag came free. Birdie gasped again, deeper this time, filling her lungs. And then she started talking. Fast. Desperate. Words tumbling out. He took me from my room. My daddy doesn't know where I am. Uncle Warren said Daddy won't pay. I'm gonna die here. 17 words. Surface truth. The first layer. Kara's throat tightened. She kept her voice gentle. Uncle Warren did this? Where's your mama, sweetheart? Mama died. Daddy's a biker. Uncle Warren hates bikers. He tied me really tight and my hands hurt and I'm so cold and thirsty, and he said I'm bad because Daddy's bad. 31 words. Deeper truth. The pain beneath. Kara pulled her water bottle from her pack, held it to Birdie's cracked lips. Small sips. Your stomach's empty. Too much will make you sick. Birdie drank. 3 small sips. Her eyes never left Kara's face. Kara broke off a piece of granola bar, fed it to Birdie in tiny bites. Why would he do this, Birdie? Why would your uncle hurt you? Birdie's voice shook. The words came slower now, like she was reciting something she'd been replaying in her head all night. I heard him on the phone. He said, same as before, remember, Linda? Everyone believed the cancer story. This one's a runaway. The 327 goes to me when she's gone. I think Linda was his wife. I think he killed her. I think he's gonna kill me for money. 52 words. The bombshell. The terrible truth a 5-year-old shouldn't have to understand. Kara felt cold wash through her. Not from the temperature, from the realization of what she'd stumbled into. Warren Cruz wasn't just a kidnapper. He was a serial killer. He'd done this before, and he'd gotten away with it. Kara looked at Birdie. Really looked at her. 5 years old. Blonde hair matted with sweat and tears. Rope burns on her wrists already bleeding. Lips cracking from dehydration. Shivering in summer weight pajamas while October cold seeped through the cabin walls. And she made a promise. Kara knelt, so they were eye level. She took Birdie's small, cold hands gently in hers, careful not to touch the rope burns. Listen to me, Birdie. My name is Kara. I'm a Girl Scout. I've been in this forest since I was 6 years old. My dad's a park ranger. He's probably searching for you right now with your daddy. I found you, and I'm not leaving. I can't untie you yet because if Uncle Warren sees you're loose, he'll know someone found you. But I'm going to bring you water and food. Every time he leaves, I'll come back. I'm leaving markers for search teams. They're coming. You're going to see your daddy again. I'm staying right here. You have my word. Birdie's eyes filled with tears. Not sad tears. Hope tears. You promise? I promise. Kara reached up and unpinned the Girl Scout 3-finger salute pin from her jacket. The silver pin her mother had given her 2 years ago. The pin that meant everything. She pinned it carefully to Birdie's yellow pajama top. Left side. Right over her heart. where Birdie could see it even with her hands tied. "This was my mama's. She gave it to me before she died. It means I keep my promises. When you look at it, you remember. Kara's coming back. You're not alone." Birdie looked down at the pin, touched it with her bound hands, fingers barely able to reach. Whispered, "Thank you." Kara stood, checked the window for movement, listened for footsteps. "I have to go before he comes back. I'll be close. If you need me, I'll hear you. Be brave, little bird." She used Birdie's name as an endearment. Little bird, it fit. Small and fragile and trying so hard to survive. Kara replaced the gag gently, apologizing with her eyes. Climbed back out through the window. Replaced the loose board carefully, hiding all evidence she'd been inside. Then she started her real work. Trail markers first. Kara spent the next 4 hours hiking in expanding circles from the cabin, leaving signs every 100 yards that search teams would recognize. A broken branch with the tip pointing northwest toward the cabin. 3 rocks stacked in a cairn. A strip of bright orange paracord tied to a low tree branch at eye level. She also did something else. Something she'd learned in survival training. Using a sharp stick, she carved into the soft bark of distinctive trees along the path. Girl trapped /cabin /2.1 miles northwest /help short. Clear, impossible to miss if search teams came through. By 1:15 p.m., Kara had created a trail of markers stretching from the cabin back toward Wilson Creek Trail, the nearest marked hiking path. 2.1 miles of breadcrumbs for her father and search teams to follow. Then she climbed. The ridge above the cabin rose 300 feet, topped with a granite outcrop, perfect for signal fires. Kara gathered deadwood and pine needles, built a fire pit using stones in a triangular arrangement that screamed, "Human made this," and waited. Warren returned to the cabin at 2:47 p.m., stayed for 9 minutes, left again. The moment his footsteps faded, Kara lit the fire. Thick white smoke rose straight up into the gray October sky. She fed it green branches to make it thicker. Darker. More visible from the air. Kara kept that fire burning for 51 minutes before smothering it to preserve fuel. Then she scrambled back down to the cabin. She crawled under through the foundation gap and whispered up through the floorboards. "Birdie, I'm back. I built a signal fire. Someone will see." A weak tap. Once. Like Birdie was too exhausted to tap twice. "I'm going to tell you a story," Kara whispered, "about the time my family was homeless. I was 7. My dad got hurt fighting a wildfire, broke his back, and we lost everything. Income, house, savings. We lived in our car for 4 months in winter." Another tap. Listening. "I remember asking people for help. Teachers, neighbors, church people, and I remember what it felt like when they walked past, when they pretended not to see, when they saw us and chose to look away." Kara's voice dropped lower. "That's why I'm here, Birdie. Because I know what it feels like to be invisible. And I promised myself, if I ever see someone who needs help and nobody's helping them, I will. Every single time. No matter what." A double tap. Stronger this time. "Thank you." Kara stayed under the cabin until she heard Warren's truck engine rumbling up the old logging road again. Then she slipped out, hid, and watched him enter for his 3rd check of the day. This time, he stayed longer. 18 minutes. Kara pressed herself against the stump and strained to hear through the cabin walls. Warren's voice, muffled but audible. "Your daddy hasn't called the police yet." "Good. He's smarter than I thought. But he's also scrambling, I can tell. Probably begging his biker friends for money, selling motorcycles. Desperate." A pause. 24 hours left, Bertie. One more day. Then it's done." When Warren finally left, Kara waited a full 40 minutes, making absolutely sure he wasn't coming back, before entering the cabin again through the loose board. Bertie was pale. Her lips were cracking worse. The rope burns on her wrists had started bleeding where she'd struggled against the bindings. Kara removed the gag, gave her water, fed her another granola bar in tiny pieces. "My hands hurt really bad," Bertie whispered. Kara opened her first aid kit. She had antibiotic ointment and gauze. "I'm going to put medicine on them. It might sting." She worked carefully, treating the rope burns as best she could without untying Bertie. The wounds were red and raw and angry. Infected tissue was already forming at the edges. "Tell me about your mama," Kara said quietly while she worked. Bertie's eyes filled. "She died. In a motorcycle accident. A man was drunk, and he hit her, and she died right there on the road. I'm sorry. I miss her every day. Daddy says she's watching over me. Do you think she is?" Kara thought about her own mother. About the promise she'd made at her mother's bedside to always help people. "Yeah," she said. "I think both our mamas are watching, and I think they're proud of how brave you're being." Bertie's face crumpled. "I'm not brave. I'm so scared." "Being scared and being brave aren't opposites, little bird. Being brave is doing the hard thing even when you're terrified. And you're doing that. You're holding on. You're trusting me. That's brave." Kara replaced the gag, climbed out, and went back to the ridge. She built another signal fire as the sun started setting. This one she kept burning until full darkness fell. Then she let it die and built a new one with dry wood that would burn bright and visible for miles. Orange flames against the dark October sky. A beacon saying, "We're here. Help us." Saturday night was colder than Friday. 38 degrees. Kara was down to her last granola bar and half a bottle of water. She'd given everything else to Bertie. She was exhausted. 2 nights without sleep. Legs shaking from constant hiking. Hands raw from building fires and marking trails. But every time she thought about leaving, about hiking back to her campsite, getting help the slow way, she remembered Bertie's tiny foot tapping through the floorboards. "I'm here. Still here. Don't go." Kara couldn't leave. At 11:43 p.m., exactly 48 hours since Warren sent his first ransom message, Kara heard engines. Not one engine, multiple engines. Rumbling, growing louder. She grabbed her binoculars and scanned the forest below the cabin. Headlights. Lots of headlights. Threading through trees on the old logging road Warren had used. And then she saw them. Motorcycles. Dozens of motorcycles. They emerged from the forest in tight formation. Disciplined, precise, riders wearing leather vests even in the cold. The bikes rolled to a stop 300 yards from the cabin in perfect rows. Engines cut almost simultaneously. Sudden silence except for cooling metal ticking. Men dismounted. Kara counted through her binoculars. 43 riders. They moved like soldiers. Fanning out. Establishing a perimeter. No shouting. No chaos. Pure coordinated efficiency. One man stood taller than the others. Broad shoulders, shaved head. Leather vest with patches Kara couldn't read from this distance but could guess. Hell's Angels. That was Birdie's daddy. Kara made a decision in 3 seconds. She pulled out her emergency whistle and blew 3 sharp blasts. The international distress signal. Every head turned toward the ridge. Kara stood up from behind the stump, waved her arms over her head, and shouted at the top of her lungs. "She's in the cabin! She's alive! Tied to a chair! The kidnapper left, but he might come back!" The tall man moved first. He sprinted toward the cabin at full speed, covering ground like a linebacker. 3 other bikers flanked him. The rest stayed in position, creating a defensive perimeter around the clearing. Kara scrambled down from the ridge, running, nearly falling twice on loose scree. By the time she reached the clearing, the tall man, Ironside, it had to be Ironside, was at the cabin door. He didn't kick it in immediately. He tried the handle first. Locked. Then he called out, voice cracking with emotion. "Birdie! Baby girl! Daddy's here!" From inside the cabin, a muffled sound. Desperate, joyful, terrified. Ironside's face transformed. Every hard line softened. "Stand back from the door, sweetheart." He stepped back. Kicked once. The deadbolt held. Kicked again. The old wood frame splintered. Third kick. The door exploded inward. Ironside disappeared inside. 2 seconds later, Kara heard his voice break completely. "Oh, baby. Oh, my baby girl." Kara stayed at the edge of the clearing, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Adrenaline crash hitting all at once. One of the bikers approached her. Older man, maybe 68, with gray beard and kind eyes. Vest said Crowbar across the back. "You the Girl Scout?" Kara nodded. "You're the one who stayed with her?" Another nod. Crowbar knelt to her level. "How long you been out here, kid?" 48 hours. Kara's voice came out raw. "Since Friday night. I followed him. I couldn't leave her alone." Crowbar's eyes shone. "You're 11 years old." 11 and a half. "And you tracked a kidnapper for 2 days, kept a little girl alive, built signal fires we saw from 15 miles away." He shook his head slowly. "Your daddy teach you that?" "My dad's a park ranger, Marcus Matthews. He's here." Kara's head snapped up. "What?" "Marcus Matthews, park ranger, Ouachita National Forest. He's coordinating search teams 3 miles south. They've been looking for you since Friday night when you didn't check in at your campsite. Found your gear scattered, signs of you leaving in a hurry." Crowbar pulled out a radio. "Iron, you want me to call her old man?" From inside the cabin, Ironside's voice. "Do it. And get Stitch in here. She's got rope burns and she's hypothermic." Crowbar spoke into the radio. "Rook, you got Park Ranger Matthews on your channel?" A crackle. "Affirmative. Patching through." 10 seconds of static. Then Kara heard her father's voice through the radio speaker, tight with controlled panic. "This is Matthews. Is my daughter. She's fine, sir. Tired and cold, but unharmed. She's standing right in front of me." Crowbar held the radio out to Kara. "Talk to your dad, honey." Kara took the radio with trembling hands. "Dad?" The sound that came through the speaker wasn't words. It was a sob. Relief and fear and love compressed into one broken exhale. "Kara. Oh, God. Kara, you're okay?" "I'm okay. I found her, Dad. I found the little girl. She's alive." "You," her father's voice steadied. Professional training taking over. "You found Birdie Cruz?" "Yes, sir. I tracked the kidnapper to an abandoned hunting cabin. GPS coordinates 34.6218 north, 93.2847 west. The suspect is Warren Mitchell Cruz, county commissioner, Birdie's paternal uncle. He left approximately 1 hour ago. He's armed with— Kara. Her father's voice was thick. You've been tracking a suspect for 2 days? Yes, sir. I couldn't leave her. She's 5. He was going to let her die from hypothermia and dehydration. I brought her food and water. I built signal fires. I left trail markers from here to Wilson Creek Trail. You did everything exactly right, baby girl. Everything. I'm 12 minutes out with FBI and search teams. Stay exactly where you are. Do not engage the suspect if he returns. You understand me? Yes, sir. I love you, Carolyn. Your mama would be so proud. Kara's throat closed. She handed the radio back to Crowbar and wiped her eyes fast. Inside the cabin, Ironside emerged carrying Birdie. She was wrapped in someone's leather jacket, way too big for her, sleeves hanging past her hands, with the gag removed and her face pressed against her father's neck. She was crying. He was crying. Every brother in that clearing turned away to give them privacy. Ironside walked straight to Kara. He was massive. 6'4", probably 265 pounds of muscle and ink and leather. Tattoos covered both arms. His eyes were red from tears. You're the Girl Scout. Kara looked up at him. Yes, sir. My name is Kara Matthews. You stayed with my daughter for 2 days. Yes, sir. You kept her alive. I tried, sir. Ironside's voice cracked. You did more than try, kid. You saved her life. Birdie lifted her head from her father's shoulder. Her eyes locked on Kara. She reached out one small hand, fingers stretching. Kara took 2 steps forward, and Birdie grabbed her hand tight. She gave me her mama's pin, Birdie whispered to her father, touching the Girl Scout pin still attached to her yellow pajama top. She promised she wouldn't leave me, and she didn't. Ironside looked at Kara for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised every brother there. He knelt, got down on one knee so he was eye level with an 11-year-old Girl Scout who weighed maybe 87 pounds soaking wet. Kara Matthews, he said quietly. You honored a promise to my daughter when you had every reason to run. You protected her when grown men with badges and authority were still organizing search grids. You did what needed doing because it was right, not because it was easy. His voice went rough. That's the code we live by. Protect the vulnerable. Stand up to bullies. Honor your word. This Girl Scout understands our code better than most people twice her age. He looked at the brothers gathered in the clearing, raised his voice so everyone heard. This Girl Scout is family now. She's pack. Anyone disagrees, speak now. Silence. Then one by one, every brother there, 43 men in Hell's Angels vests, nodded. Crowbar spoke up. All in favor? The response was immediate, thunderous, shaking the trees. Oi, not a single nay, not even a moment's hesitation. 43 voices saying, yes, we protect, we act, we don't look away. Ironside turned back to Kara. You got honorary colors, kid. You earned them. Kara didn't know what to say. She was 11. Exhausted. Running on adrenaline and granola bars for 48 hours. And now she was standing in a forest clearing at midnight surrounded by bikers calling her family. Thank you, sir, she managed. Don't thank me. I'm thanking you. We all are. Ironside stood, shifted Birdie in his arms. Your dad's inbound with FBI? Yes, sir. 12 minutes. Good. Warren Cruz is going to have a very bad day when they find him. Ironside's jaw tightened. He looked at one of the brothers. Rook, where's our detective? A biker stepped forward. Early 50s, graying hair, sharp eyes. Right here, Iron. Call Little Rock PD. Warren Mitchell Cruz, County Commissioner, kidnapping and attempted murder. Give them everything. Address, description, vehicle. Already done, Rook said. Sent the bolo 23 minutes ago when Kara blew that whistle. A PB's out statewide. Warren's truck just got flagged at a gas station in Malvern. State police are moving to intercept. Good. Ironside looked down at Bertie. You hear that, baby girl? They're going to arrest Uncle Warren. He can't hurt you anymore. Bertie nodded weakly against his chest. A brother approached. Younger, lean, carrying a medical bag. Iron, I'm Stitch, combat medic. Can I check her vitals? Ironside nodded. Stitch worked fast, checking Bertie's pulse, temperature, hydration level, while Ironside held her. Temps 94.8, Stitch reported. Mild hypothermia. Dehydrated but conscious. Rope burns need proper cleaning and bandaging. She needs hospital evaluation, but she's stable enough for transport. How long until airlift? Ironside asked. Another brother, the one with the radio, answered. Helicopter's 8 minutes out. Landing site is the clearing half a mile south. I'll guide them in. 8 minutes. Kara sat down on a fallen log because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Crowbar sat next to her. Didn't say anything. Just stayed close. Headlights approached through the forest. Lots of headlights. Search teams arriving. Kara saw her father's truck first. Distinctive green Forest Service vehicle, followed by 2 FBI SUVs and 3 state police cruisers. Her father was out of his truck before it fully stopped. He scanned the clearing, found Kara, and ran. Kara stood up, met him halfway. He wrapped her in a hug so tight she couldn't breathe. You scared me to death, he whispered against her hair. When I found your camp empty, when I saw you dropped everything and run, I saw him carrying her, Dad. I couldn't just let her disappear. I know you couldn't. He pulled back, hands on her shoulders, studying her face. Are you hurt? No, sir. Cold. Tired, hungry, but not hurt. You gave away your food. She needed it more. Marcus Matthews, park ranger, wilderness expert, man who'd conducted 21 successful search operations in Ouachita National Forest, looked at his daughter like he'd never really seen her before. Your mother would have done the same thing. I know. He hugged her again. Let's get you checked out. The next 20 minutes blurred. EMTs examining Kara, wrapping her in thermal blankets, checking vitals. FBI agents talking to Ironside, taking his statement, photographing the cabin. State police securing the scene. Search team members emerging from the forest, radios crackling with updates. And then someone's radio squawked. All units suspect Warren Mitchell Cruz in custody. Malvern PD executed traffic stop at Route 7 and County Road 42. Suspect is detained. Repeat. Suspect in custody. The clearing erupted. Brothers cheering. Police officers radioing confirmations. Ironside closed his eyes and pressed his face against Bertie's hair. It's over, baby. It's over. The helicopter arrived exactly 8 minutes after Stitch's call. Medical team loaded Bertie onto a stretcher, started IV fluids, wrapped her in heated blankets. Ironside climbed in beside her, refusing to let go of her hand. Before the helicopter lifted off, Bertie looked at Kara one more time through the open door. Thank you, she mouthed. Kara touched the spot on her jacket where the Girl Scout pin used to be. The pin she'd given Bertie. The pin Bertie still had, clutched in her small hand even now as medical team worked around her. You keep it, Kara called over the helicopter noise. It's yours! The helicopter rose, turned south toward Hot Springs Regional Hospital, disappeared into the night sky. Kara's father drove her home at 2:51 a.m. Sunday morning. She fell asleep in the passenger seat before they reached the highway. Sunday morning arrived with news crews. Kara woke at 9:42 a.m. in her own bed, First real sleep in 72 hours to the sound of her father on the phone downstairs. She pulled on clean clothes and found him in the kitchen, talking to someone from the FBI. Yes, she's available for interview this afternoon. No, I won't allow media contact until she's had proper rest. Yes, I understand the public interest. He hung up, looked at Kara. You're famous. I don't want to be famous. I just wanted to help Birdie. I know. But what you did, tracking a suspect for 48 hours, keeping a victim alive, building signal fires that guided rescue teams to exact coordinates, that's going into training manuals. FBI's already asking permission to use your case as an example. Kara poured herself orange juice. Is Birdie okay? Stable. They're keeping her for observation. Dehydration and hypothermia are controlled. The rope burns are bandaged. Her father hasn't left her side. And Warren? Her father's expression hardened. In custody at Garland County Detention Center. FBI's building the case. They want to interview you this afternoon because you're the primary witness. You saw everything, heard the confession, documented timeline and GPS coordinates. Your testimony is critical. Okay. Kara. He sat across from her at the kitchen table. You understand what you witnessed, right? Warren Cruz planned to murder his niece. Premeditated, for money. That's capital murder in Arkansas. I know. The prosecutor is going to ask you to repeat everything Warren said in that cabin. Everything you heard. It might be hard. I wrote it all down already, in my Gold Award notebook. Every word I could remember. Timestamps, GPS coordinates, physical descriptions. I learned that from you. Document everything in real time. Marcus Matthews stared at his daughter. How are you 11 years old? 11 and a half. By noon, the full scale of what had happened began emerging on the news. The FBI arrived at Kara's house at 2:13 p.m. 2 agents, both professional and gentle with their questions. They sat in the living room with Kara, her father, and a victim advocate the Bureau had assigned. Agent Sarah Kellerman, mid-40s with sharp eyes and a kind voice, led the interview. Kara, I need you to walk me through everything you saw and heard Friday night. Start from when you first noticed Warren Cruz in the forest. Kara pulled out her notebook. Opened to Friday, October 25th, 7:45 p.m. Read from her notes. I was at my campsite on Wilson Creek Trail when I heard footsteps approximately 150 yards northwest of my position. I extinguished my fire and observed from concealment using red filter headlamp. At 7:47 p.m., subject came into view. Male, approximately 6 feet tall, wearing khaki pants, dark polo shirt, wire rim glasses, carrying unconscious child. Child appeared approximately 4 to 6 years old, wearing yellow pajama top with daisies, pink socks. One missing. Child's left arm showed visible bruising consistent with restraint. Subject was breathing heavily, moving in irregular patterns suggesting unfamiliarity with wilderness navigation. Agent Kellerman's eyebrows rose. You documented all this in real time? Yes, ma'am. My father taught me to record observations during search operations. I maintained documentation throughout the 48-hour period. Continue. Kara read for 27 minutes. Every detail. Warren's exact words in the cabin about killing Birdie, even if ransom was paid. The timeline of his visits. The rope burns on Birdie's wrists. The confession about his plan being same as before. Remember Linda. The ransom demand for $327,600. When she finished, Agent Kellerman was quiet for a long moment. Kara, you just provided more detailed eyewitness testimony than most trained law enforcement observers could manage. You recorded suspect statements that constitute direct evidence of premeditated murder, kidnapping, and extortion. You documented physical evidence, Rope burns, gag, restraints that corroborate abuse, and you maintained chain of custody on your own observations for 48 continuous hours. Is that good? That's extraordinary. It means Warren Cruz has virtually no defense. Your testimony alone would convict him. Agent Kellerman's partner, Agent Marcus Reynolds, younger, tech-focused, leaned forward. The signal fires you built. Those were visible from our helicopter 17 miles out. Professional search and rescue teams use the same technique. How did you know to build them on high ground with green branches for smoke? Park ranger training. My dad's been teaching me wilderness survival since I was 6. And the trail markers? We found 23 distinct markers between the cabin and Wilson Creek Trail. Broken branches, stacked rocks, carved tree bark, each one pointing toward the cabin. That's textbook search and rescue protocol. I knew search teams would come eventually. I just had to make sure they could find her when they did. Reynolds shook his head slowly. You're 11. 11 and a half. Agent Kellerman closed her notebook. Kara, you did everything right. Everything. Most adults in your situation would have panicked or run or made mistakes that compromised evidence. You stayed calm, you documented, you kept the victim alive, you guided rescue to exact coordinates. That level of competence is rare at any age. She paused. I need to tell you something else. We arrested Warren Cruz at 11:53 p.m. last night. Malvern police executed the traffic stop. When officers approached his vehicle, Warren was eating a sandwich. Kara blinked. A sandwich? Ham and cheese, from a gas station. He'd just filled his tank and bought snacks for a road trip. He was calm, didn't resist arrest, acted confused when officers told him the charges. Like he genuinely didn't understand what he'd done wrong. But he planned to kill her. He did, and he'd planned it carefully. But when we searched his truck, we found camping gear, a sleeping bag, road atlas, snacks. He was heading south, probably toward Mexico or a Gulf Coast port. He'd withdrawn $4,800 in cash that afternoon. He had a burner phone with flight information to Miami, then Cayman Islands, saved in his notes app. Agent Reynolds pulled out an evidence photo, showed it to Kara. Warren Cruz's truck interior, fast food wrappers, road atlas, phone charging cable, coffee cup in the holder. This is what evil looks like most of the time, Reynolds said quietly. Not dramatic, not obviously monstrous, just ordinary. A man eating a sandwich and planning a road trip while his 5-year-old niece was tied to a chair in a freezing cabin. Hours from death. Kara's stomach turned. We need you to understand that, Kellerman said gently, because you're going to testify, and Warren's defense attorney is going to try to make him look sympathetic. They'll talk about his difficult childhood, his estrangement from family, his financial struggles. They'll make it sound like this was a desperate man making a terrible mistake. It wasn't a mistake. He said he was going to kill her even if her father paid the ransom. Exactly. That's premeditation. That's malice aforethought. That's first-degree attempted murder. Kellerman leaned forward. Your testimony will put him away for decades. Are you ready for that responsibility? Kara thought about Birdie's tiny foot tapping through the floorboards, about the muffled sobs behind the gag, about the rope burns bleeding on small wrists. Yes, ma'am. I'm ready. The interview lasted another hour. Then the agents left, promising to stay in touch as the case developed. Kara's father made her lunch, grilled cheese and tomato soup, her comfort meal, and they ate in silence for a while. You did good, baby girl, he said finally. I just did what you taught me. No, you did more than that. You made a choice. You saw someone who needed help and you didn't walk past. That's not training. That's character. That afternoon, Kara's phone started buzzing with messages. Text messages from her Girl Scout troop, from school friends, from people she didn't even know. Her scoutmaster called personally. "Kara, the council wants to recognize what you did. We're talking about a special commendation, possibly regional or even national recognition. I just want to finish my Gold Award project." "Honey, what you did is your Gold Award project. You demonstrated leadership, service, and courage at the highest level. The paperwork's a formality at this point." But Kara wasn't thinking about awards. She was thinking about Birdie, about whether she was warm, whether she was eating, whether the nightmares had started yet. At 4:47 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Kara, this is Darnell Cruz, Birdie's father." Kara sat up straighter. "Mr. Cruz, how is she?" "She's okay, physically anyway. The doctors say another 12 hours in those conditions would have been fatal. Organ damage, severe hypothermia. But you," his voice thickened, "you kept her alive. The food and water you brought her, the way you kept her calm. Doctors said that made the difference between life and death. I'm just glad she's safe. I'm calling because Birdie wants to see you. She's been asking for you all day. Keeps saying, 'Where's Kara? Is Kara okay?' She won't settle down until she sees you're all right." Kara looked at her father. He nodded. "I can come to the hospital." "Thank you. We're in room 317, Mercy Hospital, Hot Springs." Kara and her father arrived at the hospital at 5:53 p.m. Walking through the lobby, Kara noticed people staring. Whispers. Someone took a photo. Word had spread fast. Room 317 was at the end of a quiet hallway. Her father knocked gently. "Come in." Darnell Cruz stood as they entered. He was even bigger than Kara remembered from the forest. 6'4", probably 265 pounds, arms covered in tattoos, wearing a Hell's Angels vest over a black t-shirt. But his eyes were gentle when he looked at Kara. "Thank you for coming." Birdie was in the hospital bed, propped up on pillows, IV in her left arm, bandages on both wrists. She looked tiny in the adult-sized bed. But when she saw Kara, her whole face lit up. "Kara!" Kara crossed to the bed. Birdie reached out and grabbed her hand, the same way she'd grabbed it in the forest clearing, and didn't let go. "You're okay," Birdie whispered. "I was so scared something happened to you." "I'm fine. I got to sleep in my own bed last night. How are you?" "Better. It doesn't hurt as much now. They gave me medicine." Birdie looked down at their joined hands. "I still have your pin, the one you gave me. Daddy put it on my jacket." She pointed to a small leather jacket hanging on the chair beside her bed. A child-sized Hell's Angels vest. And pinned to the front, right over the heart, Kara's Girl Scout 3-finger salute pin. "I told Daddy the whole story," Birdie said. "How you whispered to me through the floor. How you promised you wouldn't leave. How you came back every time Uncle Warren left. How you brought me food, even though you were hungry too." Darnell's voice was rough. "She told me, all of it." He looked at Kara. Really looked at her. An 11-year-old girl in jeans and a Girl Scout hoodie who weighed maybe 87 pounds. "I've been riding with Hell's Angels for 23 years, he said quietly. "I've seen men twice your size freeze in crisis. I've seen trained soldiers panic under pressure. But you, 11 years old, alone in the woods, no backup, no weapons, no communication. You stayed calm. You made a plan. You executed it flawlessly. You kept my daughter alive when a grown man with resources and authority was trying to kill her." He paused. "That's not just bravery. That's something bigger. That's honor." Kara didn't know what to say. She looked at her father for help. Marcus Matthews spoke up. "Sir, my daughter did what she was trained to do. What we teach in wilderness survival. She followed protocol. With respect, Mr. Matthews, protocol doesn't keep a 5-year-old calm for 48 hours. Protocol doesn't make a child feel safe when she's tied up and terrified. Your daughter didn't just use skills, she showed compassion. She stayed when she could have run. That's not training. That's who she is. Darnell looked at Birdie, then back at Kara. I'm calling a club meeting tonight. All 3 chapters that mobilized for the search. 117 brothers. I want them to hear what happened directly from you. I want them to understand what you did. Will you come? Kara's father stiffened. Sir, I appreciate the gesture, but Kara's been through a lot. She needs rest, not... Dad. Kara squeezed Birdie's hand, then let go. Looked at Darnell. What time? 7 p.m. Hot Springs Clubhouse, 1247 Ridgeline Road. I'll be there. For Hot Springs Hellsangels Clubhouse was exactly what Kara expected, and nothing like she expected at the same time. The building itself was simple, a large garage-style structure behind Darnell's house, with motorcycles parked in neat rows outside. But when Kara and her father walked in at 6:58 p.m., what struck her was the quietness. No loud music, no drinking, no chaos. Just 117 men in leather vests, sitting in chairs arranged in rows, waiting silently. Every single one of them stood when Kara entered. Darnell was at the front of the room. He gestured to an empty chair beside his. Kara, up here. She walked to the front. Her father stayed near the door, arms crossed, watching carefully. Darnell waited until everyone settled. Then he spoke. Brothers, you all know why we're here. Friday night, my 5-year-old daughter was kidnapped from her bedroom by my own brother. Chloroformed, tied up, left in a cabin to die from hypothermia and dehydration while Warren planned to take her settlement money and flee the country. Silence, heavy and angry. You mobilized within 2 hours of the ransom message. 3 chapters. 117 riders. You searched for 67 hours straight without sleep. You coordinated with FBI and state police. You found that cabin because of signal fires and trail markers. He looked at Kara. Those markers were left by an 11-year-old Girl Scout who tracked my brother for 2 days, stayed hidden, kept Birdie alive, and refused to leave her, even when running would have been safer. Darnell turned to address the room. Kara Matthews, Girl Scout Troop 2847, daughter of Park Ranger Marcus Matthews. This is the kid who saved my daughter's life. Every man in that room was looking at Kara now. Kara, Darnell said gently, tell them what you did. Start from Friday night. So Kara did. She told them about hearing footsteps in the dark, about seeing Warren carry Birdie through the forest, about following him for 2.1 miles to the cabin, about the decision she made to stay instead of hiking out for help, about crawling under the floorboards and whispering to Birdie, promising she wouldn't leave. She told them about the 48 hours. The cold, the hunger, the fear every time Warren returned to the cabin, the granola bars and water she smuggled to Birdie, the signal fires she built on the ridge, the trail markers she left every 100 yards. She told them about Warren's confession, the plan to kill Birdie even if the ransom was paid. The previous victim, his ex-wife Linda, who'd died under suspicious circumstances, the settlement money he'd stolen and gambled away. When she finished, the room was silent for a full 15 seconds. Then Crowbar, the older brother who'd sat with Kara in the forest, stood up. I was there when this kid blew her distress whistle. I saw her wave us in. She was shaking so hard she could barely stand, exhausted, starving. But she didn't run to safety. She led us straight to that cabin, told us exactly where Bertie was, exactly what condition she was in, exactly when Warren had last been there. No panic, no confusion, just facts delivered like a professional witness. He looked around the room. I worked with law enforcement for 39 years before I retired. I've never seen a civilian witness that composed under pressure, and she's 11. Another brother stood. This one was younger. Late 20s, lean, intense. The vest said Cannon across the back. I'm the one who documented the arrest, Cannon said. I recorded everything on my phone when state police took Warren into custody. Made sure there was a record in case his attorney claimed mistreatment or tried to suppress evidence. You know what I found when I reviewed the footage this morning? He pulled out his phone, played a video for the room. It showed Warren Cruz in the back of a police car. Calm, almost bored. Asking the officer when he could make a phone call. Acting like he'd been pulled over for speeding, not arrested for attempted murder. That's what we're dealing with, Cannon said. A man so convinced of his own righteousness that he doesn't even understand he did anything wrong. A man who planned to kill a 5-year-old and then grabbed a sandwich on his way out of town. He looked at Kara. You stopped that. You specifically. If you'd hiked out Friday night to get help, Warren would have had time to move Bertie or finish what he started. If you'd tried to rescue her yourself and gotten caught, both of you might be dead. But you did it exactly right. You stayed close. You kept her alive. You marked the trail. You guided us in. You saved her life. Cannon sat down. Another brother stood. Then another. One by one, they spoke. Stitch, the combat medic. When I examined Bertie in the field, her core temp was 94.8 degrees. Blood pressure 78/45. Severe dehydration. Another 6 to 8 hours and we're talking organ damage, possibly fatal. The food and water Kara brought her added critical time to her survival window. Medical fact. Kara's actions are the reason Bertie's alive. Rook, the ex-detective. I've been running background on Warren Cruz. He's not just a kidnapper. He's a serial predator who uses community standing as cover. County commissioner, hospital volunteer coordinator, Little League umpire, food bank board member, scout troop leader. 5 different roles where he had access to vulnerable people and built trust. And he used that trust to hide what he really was. Rook pulled out a folder, opened it. Warren's ex-wife Linda died March 2022. Death certificate says ovarian cancer. But I pulled medical records. Life insurance policy taken out 8 weeks before diagnosis. Policy paid $187,300. Warren was listed as beneficiary despite divorce being finalized 4 months before her death. Murmurs rippled through the room. Hospice nurse's notes state Linda was afraid of Warren, requested he not be allowed in her room alone. Family ignored the request. Warren was present for her final 2 days. She died while he was caring for her. Rook's voice hardened. I tracked down the hospice nurse. She's retired, living in Missouri now. She told me she quit 1 week after Linda died because she couldn't live with what she suspected. She said Linda's symptoms didn't match typical late-stage cancer progression. She said Linda deteriorated faster than medical models predicted. And when she tried to raise concerns with hospital administration, they shut her down because Warren was a major donor and county commissioner. Silence settled heavy over the room. Warren Cruz killed his wife, Rook said flatly. Got away with it. Collected the insurance money. Waited 2 years. Then set up the exact same plan with his niece. Different method. Poisoning with Linda, hypothermia with Bertie, but same structure. Isolated victim. Insurance or settlement payout. carefully constructed alibi. And he would have gotten away with it again if an 11-year-old Girl Scout hadn't seen him carrying Birdie into the woods. He looked at Kara. You stopped a serial killer, not a desperate man making a bad choice. An actual predator who's done this before and would have done it again. Kara felt cold. She'd known Warren was planning to kill Birdie. But hearing it laid out like this, the pattern, the previous victim, the deliberate planning, made it real in a new way that turned her stomach. Darnell stood again. The FBI is building a murder case against Warren for Linda's death. They're exhuming her body tomorrow for toxicology. They're reviewing the insurance policy and Warren's financial records. They're interviewing witnesses who saw signs and said nothing. He paused. But the kidnapping and attempted murder charges on Birdie? Those are airtight. Warren's going to prison for decades, possibly life. And the reason we have him, the reason he didn't get away with it this time, is standing right here. Darnell looked at Kara. You're 11 years old. You weigh maybe 90 pounds. You don't have a badge or a weapon or legal authority, but you have something Warren Cruz never understood. You have honor. You keep your promises. And when you saw someone in danger, you didn't calculate the risk or wait for permission. You helped. He turned to face the assembled brothers. That's the code we live by. Protect the vulnerable. Stand up to bullies. Honor your word. This Girl Scout understands our code better than most people wearing our patch. Darnell's voice rose. I'm calling a vote. Honorary membership for Kara Matthews. Not a prospect. Not a kid we're humoring. Full honorary status. All in favor? The room went quiet. 117 men wearing their cuts. All waiting. Ironside looked around. All in favor of full chapter involvement and honorary membership for Kara Matthews? For 3 seconds, nothing. Just the hum of overhead lights and distant traffic outside. Then, slowly, deliberately, every single hand went up. Not one dissent, not one hesitation. 117 hands raised in unanimous vote. Crowbar brought forward a small leather vest. Child-sized, custom-made, with the Hells Angels patch on the back and honorary member stitched across the top. On the front, a small patch that said Iron's Guardian. Darnell held it up. Kara Lynn Matthews, by unanimous vote of 3 chapters, you are hereby recognized as an honorary member of Hells Angels, Hot Springs, Little Rock, and Texarkana. You protected one of ours when nobody else could. You honored the code. You're family now. He handed her the vest. Kara took it with shaking hands. The leather was soft, worn, real, not a toy. Thank you, she whispered. We're thanking you, Darnell said. The meeting ended with brothers surrounding Kara, shaking her hand, thanking her, asking about her Gold Award project and whether she needed anything. Cannon pulled her aside. Hey, I run social media for the chapter. Your story's going viral. News outlets are requesting interviews. You want my advice? Yes, sir. Don't do them. Not yet. Let the prosecutor build the case first. Let Warren get arraigned, charged, denied bail. Once he's locked up and the charges are public record, then you can tell your story if you want. But right now, your testimony is evidence. Don't compromise it by talking to media. Okay. And Kara? Cannon's voice softened. What you did was incredible, but it was also traumatic. You spent 48 hours watching a man plan to murder a child. You heard things no kid should hear. If you need to talk to someone, a counselor, therapist, someone who understands trauma, the club will cover it. Whatever you need. Kara nodded. She hadn't thought about that part yet. The nightmares that might come. The images that might replay. Her father drove her home at 9:51 p.m. They rode in silence for a while. "You okay?" he asked finally. "I don't know. I keep thinking about what Rook said, about Linda, about how Warren did this before, and nobody stopped him." "You stopped him this time?" "But what if I hadn't been there? What if I'd been camping somewhere else? What if I hadn't heard him?" "Kara." Her father pulled over to the side of the road, turned to face her. "You can't think like that. You can't carry the weight of every what if. You were there. You did hear him. You made the choice to help. That's what matters." 3 people saw signs before the kidnapping. Birdie's daycare teacher, a social worker, Birdie's pediatrician. Birdie told them she was scared of Warren, and they all did nothing. Her father was quiet for a moment. "System failed her. You didn't." Why did they fail her? Why did grown-ups with training and authority ignore what a 5-year-old was telling them? Because the system is built to move slowly, to require proof, to protect the rights of the accused, even when it costs time the victim doesn't have. Nobody built it to be cruel. It just works that way sometimes when the person inside needs saving faster than paperwork can catch up. That's not good enough. "No," her father agreed. "It's not. But that's why people like you matter. People who don't wait for the system to give permission. Who see someone who needs help and just help. You bought Birdie the time the system needed to catch up and do its job." They drove the rest of the way home in silence. That night, Kara couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Birdie's small foot tapping through the floorboards. Kept hearing Warren's cold voice. "I'm killing you anyway." At 2:23 a.m., her phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number. "Kara. This is Birdie. Daddy gave me a phone so I can call him any time. I can't sleep." "Can you talk?" Kara called immediately. "Hi." Birdie's voice was small and scared. "Hi, little bird. Can't sleep either?" "I keep having bad dreams. Uncle Warren comes back and you're not there. He can't come back. He's in jail. They arrested him. He's locked up where he can't hurt you." "Promise. I promise. And I keep my promises, remember?" Birdie was quiet for a moment. "Will you tell me a story? Like you did under the cabin?" So Kara did. She told Birdie about the time she went camping with her dad, and they saw a black bear. About how scared she was, but how her dad taught her to stay calm, make herself big, talk in a low voice. About how the bear looked at them for 10 seconds and then just walked away. "You were brave," Birdie said when she finished. "So were you." "I didn't feel brave." Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the hard thing even when you're terrified. You did that. For 48 hours. You held on. You trusted me. That's brave. Birdie yawned. "I'm sleepy now." "Good. You should sleep. I'll talk to you tomorrow, okay?" "Okay." "Kara? Yeah? Thank you for staying with me." "Always, little bird. Always." Monday morning brought the first crack in Warren Cruz's carefully constructed mask. FBI agent Sarah Kellerman called Darnell at 7:53 a.m. He was at the hospital with Birdie when his phone rang. "Mr. Cruz, we need you to come to the federal building. We found something." "What kind of something?" "Something that changes the scope of this case significantly." By 9:47 a.m., Darnell was sitting in a conference room at the FBI field office in Little Rock. Kara and her father beside him. Rook and Stitch flanking them. Agent Kellerman placed an evidence bag on the table. Inside was Warren's phone, the burner he'd used to send the ransom message, Warren didn't wipe this phone, Kellerman said. He thought deleting messages was enough. It wasn't. She opened a laptop, pulled up forensic data. We recovered everything. Texts, emails, photos, browser history, app data, GPS location history. Warren's been planning this for 8 months, since February 14th, when the wrongful death settlement was awarded. She clicked to a folder labeled Finance. Settlement amount, $327,600. Awarded February 14th of this year to Birdie Lynn Cruz, minor child, for the wrongful death of her mother, Elena Cruz. Warren Mitchell Cruz named trustee with fiduciary responsibility to manage funds for Birdie's benefit until age 18. Another click. Bank statements filled the screen. Warren began stealing immediately. First withdrawal, February 16th, 2 days after receiving trustee authority. $18,400. Labeled educational expenses. Birdie was in free public kindergarten. Kellerman scrolled through the spreadsheet. 9 total withdrawals over 8 months. Total stolen, $79,200. Rook leaned forward, studying the screen with a detective's eye. Where'd the money go? Kellerman pulled up another document. Oaklawn Racing Casino Players Card Statement. Warren's name. $23,400 lost at slot machines. $8,900 lost at poker tables, March through October. Gambling addiction, Rook said quietly. Worse than that, mounting debt he couldn't escape. Kellerman pulled up credit card statements. $56,000 in outstanding credit card balances across 4 cards. Personal loan from a non-bank lender. We're still tracking the source, but it has loan shark characteristics. Another $24,200 owed. Stitch did the math in his head. So he stole $79,000 and was still $31,800 in the hole. Exactly. He was drowning, which is when he decided the only way out was to kill Birdie and take the remaining settlement money, $248,400, and disappear to a country with no extradition treaty. Kellerman pulled up another file. Email drafts folder. October 18th, 1 week before the kidnapping. Unsent email to an offshore account service in Grand Cayman. Subject line, account setup inquiry. Body text, need to move approximately $240,000 quietly. What are fees for account opening, wire transfer, and annual maintenance? Darnell's jaw clenched so tight Kara could see the muscle jumping. He was planning her death a full week in advance. At minimum, but here's where it gets significantly worse. Kellerman opened another folder. Financial records from 2022. The room went very still. Linda Grace Cruz, Warren's ex-wife. Life insurance policy through Mutual of Omaha. Death benefit, $187,300. Policy opened January 4th, 2022. Linda diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. March 9th, 2022. She died March 27th, 2022. 8 weeks, Rook said quietly. Policy opening to death in 8 weeks. And Warren was listed as beneficiary, despite divorce being finalized December 16th, 2021. 4 months before her death. Linda never changed the beneficiary designation after the divorce. Kellerman pulled up the payout record. Insurance claim paid May 11th, 2022. $187,300 deposited directly to Warren's personal checking account. She looked at Darnell. "Mr. Cruz, your brother has done this before. The pattern is identical. Isolated vulnerable victim. Financial payout through insurance or legal settlement. Carefully timed suspicious death. Different method each time. We suspect arsenic poisoning with Linda, hypothermia with Birdie, but same underlying structure. And he's gotten away with it because his community standing made him above suspicion." Darnell's voice came out cold and flat. "You're telling me Warren murdered his wife 2 years ago, got away with it, and then tried the exact same thing with my daughter?" "That's what the evidence indicates. We're exhuming Linda's body tomorrow morning for full toxicology screening. We're interviewing the hospice nurse who cared for her in her final days. We're reviewing medical records for inconsistencies between her actual symptoms and expected ovarian cancer progression. How many people saw warning signs and said nothing?" Kellerman pulled out witness statements. "We've identified 4 people who reported concerns that were dismissed or actively suppressed." She read from the first statement. Dorothy Hayes, 71, Warren's next-door neighbor for 6 years. Statement: I saw Warren loading camping gear into his truck Friday, October 25th at approximately 5 p.m. I thought it was unusual because Warren doesn't camp. He's never been outdoorsy. He golfs. But I minded my own business. I didn't report it because I thought maybe he was trying something new. I feel sick now knowing what he was actually planning. Second statement. Frank Kowalski, 58, Warren's gambling associate at Oaklawn Casino. Statement. Warren was in deep financially. Everyone at the poker tables knew it. 3 weeks before the kidnapping, he told me he was about to come into money. Family inheritance, he said. I thought he was full of it. Gamblers brag all the time about money they don't have. I feel guilty now for not questioning where that money was supposedly coming from. Third statement. Sandra Pruitt, 46, hospital volunteer coordinator, who worked directly under Warren for 2 years. Statement. Warren seemed distracted and anxious all week before the kidnapping. He took Friday off, which was highly unusual. Warren never missed volunteer coordination days. He was obsessive about maintaining his schedule. I thought he was sick or dealing with personal issues. I realize now he was preparing to kidnap his niece. Fourth statement. Anonymous bank teller, First Security Bank, Hot Springs Branch. Statement. I processed Warren Cruz's cash withdrawal on Friday, October 25th at 2:17 p.m., $4,800. He specifically requested small bills, hundreds and fifties. Most customers withdrawing large amounts prefer larger denominations for convenience. His request was unusual enough that I remember it clearly, but I didn't report it. I understand now that small bills are harder to trace and better for international travel. Kellerman closed the file. 4 people. 4 separate warning signs. Nobody connected the dots until Birdie was already missing and tied to a chair in that cabin. Darnell stood abruptly, paced to the window, stared out at the Little Rock skyline. What's the full scope of this investigation? 2 confirmed victims, Kellerman said. Linda Cruz and Birdie Cruz. We're reviewing Warren's complete financial history going back 15 years for additional insurance policies, suspicious payouts, or unexplained windfalls. We're cross-referencing with unsolved deaths in counties where Warren lived or worked. She paused. The Garland County prosecutor is preparing to file murder charges for Linda's death pending toxicology results. The federal charges for Birdie's kidnapping are already filed. Kidnapping with intent to kill, attempted murder of a minor, wire fraud for the ransom text message, and embezzlement of court-ordered trust funds. What's he looking at for sentencing if convicted on all charges? Federal kidnapping with intent to kill. Mandatory minimum 25 years, maximum life without parole. Embezzlement of minors' trust fund, up to 10 years federal. Wire fraud, up to 20 years. If we prove Linda's murder and get a conviction in state court, potential death penalty or life without parole in Arkansas. Kellerman looked directly at Darnell. Warren Cruz is never getting out of prison. The only question now is whether there are additional victims we haven't identified yet. Rook spoke up. Agent Kellerman, I've got contacts in law enforcement across 5 states, former detectives who know how to pull records quietly and thoroughly. You need help running background checks and cross-referencing unsolved cases? We'll take any assistance we can get. But everything has to go through official channels. We can't risk compromising evidence or chain of custody. Understood. I'll coordinate with your team. There was a knock on the conference room door. Another FBI agent entered. Older, silver hair, carrying 2 thick folders. Kellerman, we got the subpoena returns. Warren's laptop, cloud storage accounts, and physical documents seized from his home office. He dropped both folders on the table with a heavy thud. You're going to want to see this immediately. The Hot Springs. Hellsangels Clubhouse at 2:37 p.m. looked like a tactical operations center. Darnell had called an emergency meeting, all 3 chapters. 117 brothers packed into the main room, standing shoulder to shoulder because there weren't enough chairs. Rook had set up a laptop and projector at the front. The ex-detective was about to walk everyone through what the FBI had found in Warren's seized files. Kara sat in the back with her father, watching. She'd been invited. Honorary member. Family. Rook pulled up the first document on the projector screen. A spreadsheet. This is Warren's personal financial tracker. He kept meticulous records of every penny he stole, every withdrawal from Birdie's settlement fund, dated and categorized with false justifications. The spreadsheet filled the screen. February 16th, 2024, $18,400. Educational expenses. Actual use. Poker tables, lost $11,200. March 22nd, 2024, $11,200. Medical costs. Actual use. Down payment on Ram truck. April 15th, 2024, $9,700. Clothing/school supplies. Actual use. Vegas trip, hotels, and gambling. May 8th, 2024, $8,300. Summer camp fees. Actual use. Omega Seamaster watch, June 19th, 2024, $7,800. Therapy sessions. Actual use. Credit card minimum payments. 9 lines total. Every single one a lie carefully documented in his private files. He created fake categories to justify the withdrawals to himself, Rook said. Created an entire false narrative about caring for his niece's needs, but his private notes show exactly where every dollar actually went. He was stealing from a 5-year-old whose mother had just died, and he was keeping score like it was a game. Stitch leaned forward from his seat in the second row. The settlement was for Birdie's dead mother. Elena was killed by a drunk driver who ran a red light. That money was supposed to help Birdie grow up without her mom. And Warren stole it to gamble and buy toys for himself. Worse than that, Rook said. He pulled up another file. Warren's browser search history from the week before the kidnapping. The search terms appeared on screen, time-stamped. October 18th, 2024, 11:47 p.m. How long can child survive without food? October 19th, 2024, 2:33 a.m. Symptoms of hypothermia in children under 10. October 20th, 2024, 9:12 a.m. Average time for Wilderness Body Discovery, Arkansas. October 21st, 2024, 3:28 p.m. Do search dogs work in cold weather conditions? October 22nd, 2024, 7:41 p.m. Cayman Islands Extradition Treaty, United States. October 23rd, 2024, 10:15 p.m. How to open offshore bank account anonymously. He researched how to kill her, Cannon said quietly from the third row. Looked up how long she'd last without food, what hypothermia would look like, how long before someone would find her body, whether they could track him after he fled the country. And here's the absolute worst part. Rook's voice went hard. He pulled up a document dated March 2022. Warren's personal journal. Digital entries from when Linda was dying in hospice. He read aloud. March 14th, 2022. Linda's hospice nurse is getting suspicious about symptom progression. Need to be more careful with dosing schedule. Small amounts, gradual decline, has to match expected cancer trajectory, or questions will be asked. March 19th, 2022. Nurse tried to raise concerns about symptoms with hospital admin. They shut her down immediately. Reputation and donor status working exactly as planned. Nobody questions the county commissioner. March 26th, 2022. Almost over. One more night. Tomorrow the policy pays out, and I can finally start over somewhere nobody knows about the debts or the mistakes. The room was completely silent. 117 men absorbing what they'd just heard. Warren Cruz had poisoned his wife, documented the murder in his private journal, and gotten away with it because his community standing made him untouchable. Warren Cruz murdered Linda, Rook said, kept a written confession on his laptop, and 2 years later he tried the exact same plan with Birdie. Different method, same goal, isolated victim dies, he collects the payout, he disappears to start over. Darnell's voice cut through the silence. How did the system miss this? Because the system is designed to protect the powerful, not the vulnerable, Rook said bluntly. Warren was a county commissioner, major hospital donor, volunteer coordinator, scout leader. He had 4 different community roles that built credibility and trust. When the hospice nurse raised concerns about Linda's death, hospital administration chose to protect their relationship with an influential donor rather than investigate suspicious circumstances. He pulled up another document. CPS was called about Birdie 5 times in the 8 months Warren served as her trust fund administrator. 5 incident reports appeared on screen. Report 1, March 2024. Birdie's kindergarten teacher reported child said, "Uncle Warren scares me," during show and tell. CPS investigator called Warren directly. Warren explained, normal childhood anxiety after maternal death, working with pediatrician on adjustment. Case closed without home visit. Report 2, May 2024. Neighbor reported hearing raised voices from Darnell's home when Warren was visiting. CPS called. Warren explained, family disagreement about grief counseling approaches. Case closed. Report 3, June 2024. Daycare provider reported Birdie seemed unusually anxious when Warren picked her up for doctor's appointment. CPS called Warren. Warren provided pediatrician's note, later found to be forged, stating, therapy in progress. Case closed. Report 4, August 2024. Social worker conducting routine post-maternal death check-in noted Birdie told her, Uncle Warren yells at Daddy about money. Report filed. Warren, county commissioner, called social worker's supervisor directly. Visit closed as civil family financial dispute outside CPS mandate. Report 5, September 2024. Anonymous caller reported Warren withdrawing large amounts from minors' trust fund. CPS referred matter to county prosecutor. Prosecutor's office declined to investigate family member acting as court-appointed trustee. 5 reports, Rook said. 5 separate chances to investigate. 5 times the system chose process over urgency, reputation over protection. By the time anyone took Birdie's fear seriously enough to act, she was already tied to a chair in that cabin, hours from death. Crowbar stood up in the back. So what do we do now? We make sure this never happens again to another kid, Darnell said. He looked at Rook. What's the FBI asking for? Full cooperation. Any brother with law enforcement background helps track Warren's history for potential additional victims. Anyone with legal expertise supports the prosecution. Anyone with media skills documents everything for public record, so there's no chance of this getting swept under the rug. Done, Darnell said immediately. Cannon, you're on media documentation. Record every court appearance, every filing, every hearing. I want a public record so clear and comprehensive that nobody can claim Warren was railroaded or that this was a rush to judgment. Already on it, Cannon said. I've been recording everything since the arrest. Stitch, you coordinate with victim services. Make sure Birdie has access to trauma counseling, ongoing medical follow-up, whatever she needs for as long as she needs it. Pediatric trauma specialist is already scheduled. First session is tomorrow afternoon. Rook, you work directly with FBI and state investigators. Give them everything they ask for. We're witnesses and concerned citizens, not vigilantes. This goes through the legal system properly. We make sure the system actually works this time. Understood. I've already established liaison with Agent Kellerman's team. Darnell looked around the room at 117 faces. Anyone disagrees with this approach? Silence. Then Crowbar spoke from his position in the back. We do this right, legal, clean, by the book. But we also make noise. We show up at every court hearing. We stand behind Kara when she testifies. We pack that courtroom so full that Warren Cruz and his expensive lawyer understand this community is watching, and we're not walking away until he's in prison for the rest of his miserable life. Darnell nodded. All in favor of this approach? 117 voices, unified. Aye! The meeting continued for another hour, organizing logistics, assigning roles, coordinating with legal counsel. Kara watched it all from the back row. Watched grown men, some of them grandfathers, some of them combat veterans, some of them with law enforcement backgrounds spanning decades, organize themselves with military precision around one single goal: protect Birdie, get justice, make sure it never happens again. As the meeting broke up, Badge, the ex-teacher turned road captain, approached Kara. You doing okay, kid? I think so. That was heavy stuff to hear. The journal entries, the pattern, understanding he'd done this before. Yeah, Badge knelt so they were eye level. You saved her life. You know that, right? Not just physically, emotionally too. Because Birdie's going to grow up knowing that when she was in the darkest moment of her life, someone stayed. Someone kept their promise. Someone proved that people can be good and brave and trustworthy. That's going to shape who she becomes. Kara nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. You ever need to talk about what you saw or what you heard or what you're feeling? You call me. Anytime. Day or night. I've worked with kids processing trauma for 18 years. I know what it looks like when someone's carrying weight they shouldn't have to carry alone. Okay. I mean it, Kara. You're family now. We take care of family. 2 weeks after Warren's arraignment, Birdie was discharged from Mercy Hospital. Stitch, the combat medic who'd stabilized her in the field, sat in the waiting room while the pediatric trauma specialist completed the final examination. He'd brought something with him, a small stuffed animal. A cardinal, Arkansas state bird, red and bright, and exactly the kind of thing a 5-year-old would love. The exam room door opened at 10:43 a.m. Dr. Patricia Harrison emerged, medical chart in hand. She was mid-50s, calm, thorough, 26 years treating pediatric trauma cases. "She's cleared for discharge," Dr. Harrison said. "Physically, she's recovered well. The rope burns are healing without infection. Hydration levels are normal. Core temperature stable. No lingering signs of hypothermia." "And psychologically?" Stitch asked. Dr. Harrison sat beside him in the waiting room. "That's going to take longer. She has nightmares 4 to 5 nights per week. She's afraid of the dark, won't sleep unless someone's in the room with her and a light is on. She startles at unexpected sounds. Won't let her father out of her sight for more than a few minutes. Classic post-traumatic stress responses for a child who experienced what she did." "What does she need?" "Weekly therapy sessions with a pediatric trauma specialist. Stability, routine, consistent safety signals, same bedtime every night, familiar surroundings, people she trusts nearby who don't disappear." Dr. Harrison paused. "And most importantly, agency. She needs to feel like she has control again. Small choices matter enormously. What to wear, what to eat, when to talk about what happened. Those choices rebuild the sense of autonomy that trauma destroys." Stitch nodded, absorbing every word. "The club's covering all therapy costs. Whatever she needs, however long she needs it. There's no limit." Dr. Harrison's expression softened. "Mr. Morrison, I've worked with childhood trauma survivors for more than 2 decades. The single biggest predictor of recovery isn't medication or specific therapy techniques. It's community. Whether the victim has people who show up consistently, who don't give up when progress is slow, who make them feel safe just by being present." She looked toward the exam room where Birdie was getting dressed with her father's help. "Birdie has that. She has her father who hasn't left her side. She has your club showing up every single day. She has Kara calling her every night before bed. That network of consistent care, that's what's going to save her in the long run." "We're not going anywhere." "I know. That's exactly why she's going to be okay." Darnell emerged from the exam room carrying Birdie. She wore new clothes, jeans with unicorns embroidered on the pockets, a soft pink sweater, white sneakers. The small leather hellsangels vest Darnell had made for her hung over her shoulders, patches carefully sewn on by brothers who'd each contributed something. And pinned to the front, right over her heart, Kara's Girl Scout 3-finger salute pin. Stitch stood, held out the stuffed cardinal. "Hey, little bird, I brought you a friend for the ride home." Birdie's face lit up. She reached for it with both hands, clutched it to her chest. "Thank you, Stitch. You ready to go home?" She nodded, then hesitated. "Is Kara coming over today?" "She's meeting us there in about an hour," Darnell said. "Okay, then I'm ready." Home was different now. Darnell's house on Ridgeline Road had been transformed during the 2 weeks Birdie was hospitalized. Brothers had installed new deadbolt locks on every door and window, commercial grade, the kind used in secure facilities. Security cameras covered all approach angles to the property, feeding to monitors in Darnell's bedroom and the main living area. Motion sensor lights ringed the entire perimeter. The clubhouse in back had been converted into a safe room, reinforced door, emergency supplies, satellite phone with direct lines to 911 and the club's emergency network. But the biggest change was inside Birdie's bedroom. The room where Warren had broken in that Friday night, the room where he'd chloroformed her and carried her away, had been completely redone. Every piece of furniture replaced. Fresh paint on all 4 walls. Different layout. Nothing that would trigger memories of that night. Badge Williams, the ex-teacher and counselor who'd become the club's trauma liaison, had supervised the entire redesign. He understood that returning to the exact space where violation occurred could re-traumatize. The room needed to feel new. Safe. Hers. When Bertie walked into her new bedroom at 11:27 a.m., she stopped in the doorway. The walls were lavender, her favorite color. The bed had a new frame shaped like a castle with soft pink curtains that could close for privacy. Stuffed animals lined the shelves, donations from brothers' families, wives, grandchildren, each one chosen carefully and washed thoroughly. A nightlight shaped like a crescent moon glowed softly in the corner, even in daylight. And on the dresser, prominently displayed in a silver frame, a photo of her mother. Elena Cruz smiling, arms around tiny 3-year-old Bertie at a park. "You did all this for me?" Bertie whispered. 31 brothers, Darnell said. "Worked around the clock for 5 days. Wanted you to have a space that felt completely safe." Bertie walked slowly to the bed, sat down carefully, ran her small hand over the soft purple comforter. "Can I pick out my own pajamas tonight?" "Every night. Whatever you want to wear." "And can I have the lamp on while I sleep?" "As long as you need it. Forever, if that's what helps you feel safe." "And can you stay in here until I fall asleep?" Darnell's voice went thick. "Baby girl, I'll stay in here every single night for as long as you want me to. You're not going to be alone unless you choose to be." That evening at 6:15 p.m., the first safe meal happened in Darnell's kitchen. Kara was there with her father. 6 brothers were there. Crowbar, Stitch, Badge, Cannon, Rook, and a younger member called Diesel, who handled club communications. The table was crowded and loud with conversation and laughter. Bertie sat between her father and Kara. Her plate held exactly what she'd asked for. Chicken tenders, French fries, apple slices cut into small pieces, and a glass of chocolate milk. Simple food. Kid food. Her choice. She ate slowly, chewing each bite thoroughly, taking her time. No one rushed her. No one said, "Hurry up," or "Finish your plate," or "We need to leave soon." She controlled the pace completely. The smell of French fries and ketchup filled the kitchen. Normal smells. Safe smells. The sensory anchor that had haunted Kara since that first night, pine needles and damp wood and fear, was completely gone now, replaced by this. Home cooking, family dinner, safety. Halfway through the meal, Bertie reached under the table and found Kara's hand. Squeezed once. "Thank you." Kara squeezed back. Always. The financial solution came together through a combination of legal action and community support over the following week. Rook worked with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit to freeze and seize all of Warren's assets. The Ram truck he'd bought with stolen money, the Omega watch, the camping gear purchased for his planned flight. Everything was liquidated, and the proceeds, $76,800, were returned to Bertie's trust fund. But the trust itself needed complete restructuring. Warren's theft had exposed catastrophic vulnerabilities in the original setup. A single trustee with unchecked access, minimal oversight, no required documentation for withdrawals, no regular audits. The club hired a trust attorney. Pro bono work from a lawyer named Michael Reeves, whose teenage daughter had been helped by Hell's Angels 2 years ago when her school ignored severe bullying that led to a suicide attempt. He'd told Darnell then, "Anything you ever need, you call me." Now he was making good on that promise. Reeves structured a new trust with 3 co-trustees, Darnell as primary guardian, the club's treasurer as financial oversight, and an independent certified financial advisor as neutral third party, requiring unanimous approval for any withdrawal over $500. Every transaction would be documented, reviewed quarterly, and audited annually by an outside firm. He presented the new structure at a meeting 1 week after Birdie's discharge. "Birdie's money is locked down now," Reeves explained, spreading documents across Darnell's kitchen table. "Nobody can touch it without documented need, written justification, and 3 signatures. When Birdie turns 18, she inherits everything with full control. Until then, this trust is as secure as we can possibly make it." "Warren stole $79,200, Darnell said. "We recovered $76,800 from liquidating his assets. That leaves a $2,400 shortfall." "Already handled," Crowbar interrupted. He slid a bank deposit slip across the table. "Emergency fund contribution. Each of the 3 chapters contributed $800. Money's been transferred. Birdie's trust is whole again." Darnell's jaw tightened with emotion. He tried to speak. Couldn't. Just nodded once. But there was more. Cannon had been documenting everything: the rescue, the investigation, the court proceedings, and posting careful updates on the chapter's social media. The story had gone viral beyond anything they'd anticipated. Not just locally, nationally. News outlets from New York to Los Angeles had covered it. The 11-year-old Girl Scout who tracked a killer. The 5-year-old who survived against impossible odds. The brotherhood that mobilized 117 riders to save her. And people wanted to help. A GoFundMe appeared, not created by the club, but by a complete stranger in Portland, Oregon, who'd read Kara's story and wanted to do something. The goal was $5,000 for Birdie's therapy and medical expenses. It raised $63,400 in 9 days from donors across all 50 states and 12 countries. "We can't accept this," Darnell said when Cannon showed him the total. "It's not for you," Cannon said gently. "It's for Birdie. Thousands of people saw what Warren did. They saw how the system failed her. And they're saying not on our watch. This is strangers across the country and around the world refusing to let a 5-year-old carry the financial burden of what was done to her." The money was placed in a separate education fund. Fully transparent. Every dollar tracked and publicly reported. Complete accountability. By Thanksgiving, 4 weeks after the rescue, Birdie had financial security that most adults never achieve. $248,400 in protected settlement trust, $63,400 in education fund from public donations, full scholarship to private school, donated by an anonymous Hot Springs family, 7 years of prepaid therapy sessions covered by Club Emergency Fund. She was 5 years old, and she would never have to worry about money again. The brothers said their goodbyes gradually over the weeks following Birdie's discharge, each in their own way, each leaving something permanent behind. Stitch stopped by every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Always brought something small, a book, a puzzle, a stuffed animal to add to Birdie's growing collection. Never stayed more than 20 minutes. Just checked in, made sure she knew he was around, made sure she understood the care was ongoing and unconditional. Badge scheduled weekly homework help sessions every Thursday afternoon. Birdie was in kindergarten. There wasn't actual homework, but Badge understood she needed structure and routine. So they did activity worksheets together. practiced reading simple books, drew pictures, talked about feelings when Birdie was ready. And when she wasn't ready, they just sat together in comfortable silence. Cannon created a private photo album documenting Birdie's recovery. Not for social media. For her. Pictures of her smiling, playing with the stuffed animals, safe moments with her father. Someday, he told Darnell, she's going to want proof that she made it through. That she didn't just surf in but actually healed. This is that proof. Rook brought Birdie to the courthouse one afternoon in mid-November, her choice, her idea, to watch Warren's preliminary hearing from the gallery. She sat between her father and Kara while the judge reviewed evidence and set a trial date for March. Warren was led in wearing orange jail scrubs and handcuffs. He looked at Birdie once. Just once. She looked back. Didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't hide. And then she turned to Kara and whispered, "He's smaller than I remember." "That's because you're bigger now," Kara whispered back. When the hearing ended, Rook crouched in front of Birdie in the courthouse hallway. "You didn't have to come today. Why did you want to?" "Because I wanted to see that he really can't get out. That he's really locked up where he can't hurt anybody. He is. And he's staying that way. Good." Diesel, the youngest brother, tech-savvy, only 29, gave Birdie something practical. An emergency contact card, laminated and wallet-sized, with 11 phone numbers. "These are brothers you can call anytime, day or night, if you're scared or need help or just want to talk. Some of us are up all hours anyway, working night shifts. You're never alone, little bird. Ever." Birdie kept the card in her jacket pocket, carried it everywhere for months. Crowbar was last. The elder statesman. The one everyone listened to when he spoke. He visited Birdie 5 weeks after the rescue, brought her to the clubhouse and showed her something new mounted on the wall beside the club charter and the memorial photos of fallen brothers. A plaque. Polished wood with brass engraving. It read, "Kara Lynn Matthews, Honorary Member, Hell's Angels. Hot Springs Chapter. October 25th to 27th, 2024. She saw. She stayed. She saved." "This is permanent," Crowbar said. "As long as this chapter exists, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, your story and Kara's story are part of our history. The Girl Scout who tracked a killer to save a little girl. The 5-year-old who held on and survived. The brotherhood that answered the call. That's who we are now. That's our legacy." He looked down at Birdie. "You're part of this family, kid. Not because of what happened to you. Because of how you survived it. Because you're strong and brave, and you kept fighting even when you were more scared than anyone should ever have to be. You're ours. Always." Birdie touched the plaque, traced Kara's name with one small finger. "Can Kara see this?" "She's seen it. We showed her last week when we mounted it. She cried." "Happy crying or sad crying?" "Both." December arrived cold and clear in Hot Springs. Kara stood outside Birdie's elementary school at 2:43 p.m. on a Friday, waiting. She'd been doing this twice a week since Birdie returned to kindergarten, picking her up, walking her to her father's truck, making sure the transition from school to home felt safe and supervised. The bell rang at 2:45 exactly. Children poured out through double doors. Birdie emerged 7th from the entrance. She wore her pink winter coat with the fuzzy hood and a backpack covered in unicorn stickers. The small leather Hell's Angels vest was underneath her coat. Kara could see the edge of it at the collar. When Birdie saw Kara waiting, her whole face changed. She ran. "Kara!" They hugged. Birdie had gained 11 pounds since the rescue. Her face had color again. The dark circles under her eyes were almost completely gone. She looked healthy. Fed. Cared for. "How was school today?" "Good. We made gingerbread houses for Christmas. Mine has a red candy roof and a candy cane fence and gumdrops for decorations. Mrs. Patterson said it was the most creative one in the whole class." "That sounds amazing. I bet it's beautiful." They walked to where Darnell waited in his truck, idling at the curb. He saw them through the windshield, nodded to Kara. Grateful. Relieved. Birdie climbed into her car seat, the new one Stitch had installed with a 5-point harness and reinforced side impact protection. Extra safe, extra secure. Nothing left to chance. Before Kara closed the door, Birdie grabbed her hand. "Can you come over tomorrow morning? Daddy's making pancakes. He learned how to make them shaped like animals. Last week I got an elephant and a butterfly." "I'll be there. What time?" 8:30. And bring your appetite because Daddy makes a lot of pancakes. I promise I'll be there." "Promise, promise?" "Promise, promise." Birdie smiled, let go of Kara's hand. Kara closed the door gently. Darnell rolled down his window. "You don't have to keep doing this, you know. Picking her up twice a week, coming over for meals, calling her every night before bed. You've already done more than anyone could ever ask." "I want to," Kara said simply. "She's my little bird." "Yeah, she is." Darnell paused. "She's sleeping better now? The nightmares went from every night to maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Badge says she's making real progress in therapy. She's talking about what happened instead of just shutting down when it comes up." "That's really good." "It's because of you. You know that, right? The reason she's healing is because you kept your promise. You stayed. And now when she's scared at night, she remembers. Someone stayed before. Someone will stay again. That memory is what's getting her through." Darnell drove away. Kara walked to her father's Forest Service truck parked across the street. That night, alone in her room after dinner, Kara did something she'd been doing every night since the rescue. She took out her Gold Award notebook, the one with all her documentation from those 48 hours, and read through it. Not to remember. She could never forget, even if she wanted to. She read it to remind herself why it mattered. Friday, October 25th, 7:45 p.m. Subject carrying unconscious child through forest. Decision. Follow. She'd made that choice in seconds. Follow or return to camp. Help or walk away. Stay or run. And in choosing to follow, to stay, to help, she'd changed 2 lives. Birdie's and her own. Kara closed the notebook, put it in her desk drawer beside the small honorary Hell's Angels patch crowbar had given her. The patch she sometimes wore to school under her jacket, where nobody could see, but she could feel it against her heart. She sat quietly for a moment. Winter stars visible through her window. Her mother's photo on the nightstand watching over her. She didn't say anything out loud, didn't make a declaration or a speech. But sitting there in the silence, Kara renewed the promise she'd made to herself that night in the forest. She would keep showing up. For Birdie. For anyone else who needed someone to stay. Because that's what honor meant. Not a one-time choice, a pattern of choices. Every single day choosing to see people who need help and choosing not to walk past. That was who she was now. Not because of what happened in October, because of what she decided to keep doing every day after. 18 months after the rescue, Birdie was 7 years old. Second grade. Growing fast. Taller, stronger, more confident with every passing week. The nightmares had stopped completely 4 months ago. She slept with the light off most nights now. She could be alone in her room without panic rising in her chest. She'd stopped carrying Diesel's emergency contact card everywhere, though she kept it in her backpack just in case. She was healing. Real, visible, measurable healing. And then one Tuesday afternoon in April, she made a decision that would change her trajectory. Badge was helping her with actual homework this time. Second-grade math problems and a book report on a story about a brave mouse. They were sitting at Darnell's kitchen table when Birdie looked up from her worksheet and said something Badge wasn't expecting. "I want to talk to other kids. Kids like me." Badge set down his pencil. "Kids like you how?" "Kids who got hurt by people they were supposed to trust. Kids who were really scared. I want to tell them it gets better. That they can be okay again." Badge studied her carefully. "That's a big decision, Birdie. Are you sure you're ready for that?" "I think so." Her voice was steady. Certain. "Because I remember what it felt like when nobody believed me. When I told my teacher and my doctor and the social worker that Uncle Warren scared me, and they all said I was just sad about Mama dying. I remember thinking, if grown-ups won't listen, then I'm completely alone." She looked at Badge with those old soul eyes. "But I wasn't alone. Kara listened. She believed me. She stayed. And now I'm okay. So maybe if I talk to other scared kids, they'll know somebody believes them too. They'll know it's possible to be okay again." Badge called Darnell immediately. Darnell called the Pediatric Trauma Center. Within 3 weeks, Birdie was enrolled in a peer support program for child abuse survivors. She started small. Group sessions with 5 other kids, all ages 6 to 9, all survivors of family violence or neglect. A trained counselor facilitated every meeting. Birdie mostly listened the first 4 sessions. Just absorbed. Just learned what it felt like to be in a room with other kids who understood. Then, in the 5th session, she spoke. "My uncle tried to kill me." Her voice was quiet but clear. "He was supposed to protect me, but he stole my mama's money, and he tied me up in a cabin in the woods and left me to freeze because he wanted more money. And for a really long time, I thought it was my fault. Like, maybe if I'd been quieter or better or less sad about Mama, he wouldn't have done it." The counselor leaned forward gently. "And what do you think now, Birdie?" "I think he made a choice. Grown-ups make choices every day, and his choice was to be evil. It wasn't about me being good or bad. It was about him choosing to do something terrible. That was his choice, not mine. One of the other kids, a boy named Marcus, age 8, whose stepfather had beaten him severely enough to fracture his skull, said quietly, 'How did you stop being scared all the time?' I didn't completely stop. I'm still scared sometimes. I still don't like being in the dark. I still check that my bedroom window is locked every single night before I go to sleep. But I'm also brave now. Because being scared and being brave can happen at the exact same time." Another girl asked, "Did the person who hurt you go to jail?" "Yeah. He's in federal prison. He got 28 years. He'll be 71 years old when he gets out, and I'll be 33. And if he ever tries to contact me or come near me, I have a restraining order and a whole motorcycle club ready to make sure he never gets close." A younger girl named Sophie, age 6, who'd been silent every previous session, whispered, "Do you still have nightmares?" Birdie thought about it, honestly. "Not as much anymore. I used to have them every single night, now maybe once a month. And when I do, I call my friend Kara. She's the one who saved me. She always answers her phone even if it's 3 in the morning. She talks to me until I'm okay again." Sophie's voice got even smaller. "I wish I had a Kara. You do, Bertie said with absolute conviction. Maybe not the same person with the same name, but there's always someone. A teacher, a counselor, a neighbor, a friend's parent. Someone who will help if you ask. The hard part is believing they'll actually show up. But they will. I promise you they will. After that session, the program coordinator, a woman named Dr. Ellen Martinez, who'd been running trauma support groups for 11 years, pulled Darnell aside. Bertie's extraordinary. The way she articulates her experience, the way she validates other children's fear while simultaneously showing them concrete hope. That's therapeutic leadership at a level I rarely see. If she continues on this path, she could become a peer counselor herself when she's older, helping other survivors process trauma and find their way back to safety. She's 7. She's 7 now, but at 12, 13, 14, when she's older and ready if she still feels called to this, she could do incredible healing work. She has lived experience, she has emotional intelligence far beyond her years, and she has the ability to communicate hope without minimizing pain. That combination is genuinely rare. Darnell watched through the observation window as Bertie helped Sophie put on her coat. Gentle, patient, kind. The way someone had been gentle and patient and kind with her when she needed it most. She's not my little girl anymore, he said quietly. She's becoming something bigger than that. She's becoming who she was always meant to be, Dr. Martinez said. The trauma didn't create this person. It revealed her, showed everyone, including Bertie herself, what she's capable of when she chooses courage. 4 weeks after joining the support group, Bertie stood in front of the Arkansas State Legislature. A bill had been introduced, Bertie's Law, requiring dual trustee oversight for all minor inheritance trusts over $100,000, mandatory quarterly financial reporting to the court, and enhanced criminal penalties for trustee embezzlement when the victim is a minor. The bill's sponsor, State Representative Amanda Ochoa, had invited Bertie to testify at the hearing. You don't have to do this, Darnell had told her the night before. This is a lot of pressure for a 7-year-old, testifying in front of legislators and cameras and reporters. I want to, because maybe if this law existed 2 years ago, Uncle Warren couldn't have stolen my money. And maybe other kids won't get hurt the way I did. So Bertie stood at the witness table in the State House chamber on a Wednesday afternoon in May. 7 years old, wearing a purple dress and the small Hell's Angels vest with Kara's Girl Scout pin still attached over her heart. The room was packed. Legislators filled the seats at the front. Media cameras lined the back wall. Advocates and concerned citizens stood in every available space. And in the very back row, 43 Hell's Angels in full colors, sitting silently, bearing witness, making their presence known without saying a word. Kara was in the front row beside Darnell. She reached over and squeezed his hand once. He squeezed back. Representative Ochoa smiled gently at Bertie. Thank you for being here today, Bertie. Can you tell the committee what happened to you? Bertie spoke clearly. No script, just the truth she'd lived. When my mama died in a motorcycle accident, a judge said my Uncle Warren should take care of her money until I grew up. My uncle was important. He was a county commissioner and a hospital volunteer, and everyone in town liked him and trusted him. But he stole my money. $79,200. And when my daddy found out and tried to stop him, Uncle Warren decided to kill me so he could keep the rest. She paused. Let that fact settle in the room. He took me from my bedroom in the middle of the night. He tied me up in a cabin in the woods. He left me there to freeze and starve. He told me my daddy didn't love me enough to save me, and he was going to take all my mama's money and leave the country. A legislator started to interrupt with a question, but Representative Ochoa held up one hand. Let Birdie finish. I was rescued because an 11-year-old Girl Scout tracked my uncle for 2 whole days and kept me alive until help came. Not because the system worked. The system failed me 3 times before I was even kidnapped. I told my teacher I was scared of Uncle Warren. She didn't report it. I told a social worker. She called my uncle and believed his lies. I told my doctor. He wrote it off as me being sad about Mama. Birdie's voice grew stronger, more certain. The system failed me, but this law won't fail other kids. This law says you can't give one person complete control over a child's money without oversight. This law says you have to prove where every dollar goes and get approval before you spend it. This law says if you steal from a kid whose mom or dad died, you go to prison for a long time. She looked directly at Representative Ochoa, then at the other legislators, making eye contact, connecting. My mama died protecting me. She was riding her motorcycle, and a drunk driver ran a red light and killed her instantly. That settlement money was supposed to help me grow up without her. Uncle Warren stole it, and then tried to kill me to get more. If this law had existed 2 years ago, maybe he couldn't have. Maybe I wouldn't have spent 2 days tied to a chair thinking I was going to die. Her voice caught for just a second, then steadied. Please pass this law. For me, and for every other kid who lost someone they loved and needs that money to be protected. Please. The chamber was completely silent for 5 full seconds. Then one legislator started clapping. Slowly at first. Then another joined. Then another. Within seconds, the entire chamber, both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats alike, was applauding. Standing ovation for a 7-year-old girl who'd just delivered the most powerful testimony most of them had ever heard. Birdie's law passed the Arkansas House 3 weeks later by a vote of 97-3. Passed the Senate unanimously 2 weeks after that. Governor signed it into law in June. Arkansas became the first state in the nation to require dual trustee oversight with mandatory court reporting for minor inheritance trusts. Within 8 months, 6 other states had introduced similar legislation. Within 2 years, it would be 14 states. Birdie had turned her trauma into protection for thousands of children she would never meet. 2 years after the rescue, Birdie was 9 years old, 4th grade, confident, healing in ways that sometimes surprised even the people who knew her best. She was sitting in the school counselor's office during lunch period on a Tuesday in October. Not because she was in trouble, but because she'd asked for the meeting. Ms. Rivera, there's a new girl in my class. Her name is Emma. She's really quiet and keeps to herself. She flinches when people get too close to her. And yesterday during PE, when we were changing for gym class, I saw bruises on her arms when her sleeve rode up. School counselor Jessica Rivera set down her pen, gave Birdie her full attention. What did you do when you saw that? I asked her if she was okay. She said she was fine. But I know what fine sounds like when it's a lie. I used to say it all the time when people asked me questions I didn't want to answer. Birdie, I appreciate you noticing, and I appreciate you coming to me. But if you suspect abuse, I'm a mandatory reporter. I have to. I know you have to report it. But I also know what happens when adults report things sometimes. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it makes things worse because the kid isn't ready yet, or doesn't trust the system, or gets scared. Birdie leaned forward. Can I talk to her first? Just as a friend? Because maybe she'll tell another kid what she won't tell a grown-up. And if she does tell me something, I'll bring her straight to you. I promise. Ms. Rivera was quiet for a long moment. This wasn't standard protocol. This wasn't how these situations were supposed to be handled. But she was looking at a 9-year-old with old eyes and a survivor's instinct for recognizing pain in others. What exactly are you asking for permission to do? Just be Emma's friend. Sit with her at lunch. Walk with her after school if she wants company. Show her that someone sees her and cares. And if she trusts me enough to tell me what's happening, if she opens up, I bring her to you immediately and you do whatever needs to be done. I'm not trying to handle this myself. I just want to be the bridge that helps her ask for help. Ms. Rivera studied Bertie. You understand you can't force her to talk. I know. And if she discloses abuse or neglect, you come to me right away. No delays, no trying to fix it yourself. I will. I promise. Okay. Ms. Rivera nodded slowly. Be her friend. But Bertie, take care of yourself too. You're not responsible for saving everyone. I know, but I am responsible for trying. For the next 3 weeks, Bertie sat with Emma at lunch. Didn't ask invasive questions. Just talked about normal things. Books they were reading. TV shows they liked. Favorite animals. Homework that was hard. Slowly, carefully, Emma started talking back. Started smiling occasionally. Started sitting a little closer. Then one morning in early November, Emma showed up to school with a black eye. Bertie didn't hesitate. She walked straight to Ms. Rivera's office with Emma's hand in hers. Emma has something to tell you. Emma was crying before she even sat down. My stepdad hit me. He hits my mom too. He said if we told anyone, he'd hurt us way worse. He said nobody would believe us anyway because he's a police officer. Ms. Rivera called CPS immediately. Then she called the police department's internal affairs division, because an officer abusing his family required a different response than a standard domestic violence call. Within 2 hours, Emma and her mother were in emergency protective custody. Within 4 hours, Emma's stepfather was arrested and placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Emma's mother, Rachel, 36, exhausted and terrified, met Bertie briefly in the principal's office that afternoon while arrangements were being made for temporary housing. The counselor said, "You're the one who noticed, who befriended Emma, who brought her here." "Yes, ma'am." Rachel knelt down, eye level with Bertie. "You're 9 years old. Almost 10. And you saw my daughter was hurting. And you didn't look away." "No, ma'am. I couldn't." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" "Most kids wouldn't have noticed. Or if they did notice, they wouldn't have cared enough to do anything." Bertie touched the Girl Scout pin on her jacket, the one Kara had given her 4 years ago, the one she still wore every single day without fail. "Because someone did that for me once, when I was 5. When I was the scared kid who needed someone to see me and help me. A girl named Kara saw me, and she didn't look away. She stayed with me. She saved my life." Bertie's voice was steady, strong. "I promised myself if I ever saw someone who needed help the way I needed help back then, I wouldn't walk past. I'd be their Kara. Because everyone deserves someone who won't leave them alone when they're scared." Rachel pulled Bertie into a hug, held her tight. "Thank you. Thank you for seeing her. Thank you for caring. Always." That same week, Kara Matthews, now 15 years old, high school sophomore, still active in Girl Scouts and working toward her Gold Award completion, sat in her bedroom with the certificate framed on her wall. She'd officially completed her Gold Award project 2 years ago. The paperwork had been a formality, just like her Scoutmaster said, because everyone understood what the real project was, what the real achievement had been. Her phone rang. Darnell's number. "Hey, Mr. Cruz?" "Kara, you got a minute?" "Always, what's up?" "Bertie helped save a kid at her school this week. 9-year-old girl being abused by her stepfather. Bertie noticed the signs, befriended her, brought her to the school counselor, Girl and her mom are safe now. Stepdad's in custody. Kara's breath caught. She did that? She did. And when the mom asked her why a 9-year-old would care enough to get involved, you know what Birdie said? What? She said she promised herself she'd be someone's Kara, that she wouldn't walk past people who needed help, that everyone deserves someone who'll stay. Silence on the phone line. Kara couldn't speak around the lump in her throat. I'm calling to say thank you, Darnell said quietly. Not just for saving Birdie 4 years ago in that forest, but for showing her what honor looks like. What it means to keep promises even when keeping them is hard. What it means to stay when leaving would be easier. She did that herself. No, you planted the seed. You showed her that one person staying can change everything, and now she's doing it for others. The impact you had 4 years ago in that cabin. It's rippling. It's growing. Birdie's going to spend her whole life helping scared kids because you helped her. And I wanted you to know that. I wanted you to understand what you started. After the call ended, Kara sat for a long time in the quiet of her room. She thought about that night in October 4 years ago, about hearing footsteps in the dark, about seeing a man carrying an unconscious child, about making the choice to follow instead of hiking out for help. She'd been 11 years old, scared, completely alone. But she'd made a promise to herself, and she'd kept it. And now, 4 years later, that promise was still being kept. By Birdie. For Emma. And probably for others Kara would never even hear about. Kara opened her desk drawer, pulled out the honorary Hell's Angels patch Crowbar had given her. She didn't wear it often anymore. It felt too precious, too heavy with meaning. But tonight she pinned it to her jacket, right next to her Girl Scout badges and pins. 2 communities, 2 codes of honor, both saying the exact same thing. Protect the vulnerable. Keep your promises. Stay when others leave. Show up. Help. Care. That was who she'd been at 11. Who she was at 15. Who she would keep choosing to be every single day for the rest of her life. Not because of what happened in October 4 years ago, but because of the choice she made every morning when she woke up. To see people. To stay. To help. That was honor. Not a single moment. A pattern. A commitment. A life lived in service of a promise. This story isn't really about bikers or badges or wilderness survival skills. It's about a choice an 11-year-old girl made when nobody would have blamed her for choosing differently. It's about seeing someone in danger and deciding that doing nothing wasn't an option, even when doing something meant risking everything. It's about the promise Kara whispered to herself that Friday night. I'm staying with her. Whatever happens, she won't be alone. And how she kept that promise through 2 days of cold and hunger and exhaustion and fear. It's about how Darnell Cruz and 116 other Hell's Angels mobilized within hours, searched for 67 straight hours without sleep, and never once let ego or reputation get in the way of saving a child. It's about how Birdie survived. Not just physically, though doctors said another 6 hours would have been fatal, but emotionally. How she turned trauma into purpose. How she became someone who helps other scared kids find their way back to safety. And most of all, it's about this truth. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is being absolutely terrified and doing the right thing anyway. Kara was 11. She was alone. She was scared. She could have hiked back to her campsite, returned to safety, let someone else handle it. She stayed instead. Because staying was right. Because a Girl Scout keeps her promises. Because when you see someone who needs help, you don't wait for permission. You help. Today, Kara Matthews is 15, a sophomore at Hot Springs High School, still active in Girl Scouts, still volunteering with wilderness safety programs. She still visits Birdie every week. She still wears the honorary Hell's Angels patch her mother would have been proud to see. Birdie is 9 now, 4th grade. She volunteers with child abuse survivor support groups. She testified before the state legislature and helped pass a law protecting vulnerable kids. She saved Emma from an abusive home because someone taught her what it means to stay. And every October 25th, the anniversary of the worst night and the best decision of their lives, Kara and Birdie go back to Hot Springs National Forest together. Not to the cabin. They don't need to revisit that place, but to the ridge where Kara built her signal fires. They sit on the rocks and watch the sun come up over the Ouachita Mountains, and they don't talk much. They don't need to. The promise was kept. That's all that matters. If this story moved you, I need you to do something. Pay attention. There are birdies everywhere, kids who are scared, kids being hurt by people they should be able to trust, kids who tell teachers and doctors and counselors and get ignored because the abuser has a title or reputation. There are Karas everywhere, too. Kids with more courage and character than most adults. Kids capable of extraordinary things if we teach them skills and trust them with responsibility. And there are Darnells everywhere. People who look scary. People society tells us to avoid. People who turn out to be exactly the protectors we need when everything falls apart. You don't need a motorcycle, or a merit badge, or 48 hours in the wilderness to make a difference. You just need to care enough to stay when leaving would be easier, to keep promises even when breaking them would be simpler, to do the right thing even when the right thing is hard. Kara was 11. If she can do it, so can you. So pay attention. Listen when a child hesitates. Ask the uncomfortable questions everyone else is too polite to ask. Care enough to intervene even if your voice shakes. Be the person who stays. Subscribe to Gentle Biker Official for more stories that prove heroes come in unexpected forms. Comment below and tell me, who was your protector when you needed one? And whose Kara are you being right now? Because everyone needs someone who won't leave. Everyone deserves their own Kara. The Girl Scout pin still sits on Birdie's vest, right over her heart. A promise kept. A life saved. A legacy that ripples forward every time Birdie helps another scared child. That pin says, someone stayed. Someone will stay again. Be the person who stays.